My mom wants us to split. If you can give her a grandchild, all right, sure. But I'm pregnant, though. Huh? Oh, right, let me introduce myself. I'm Anna, a housewife in my 30s. I live with my husband, who works as a salaried employee. We met when I was working at a food-related company. I was drawn to him because of his occasional charming smile during our many business discussions. So, I took the initiative and asked him out. At first, he declined, saying, "Sorry, I'm flattered, but I have a girlfriend." However, a month later, he approached me and said, "I broke up with her. Can we start dating?" It turns out that after my confession, he started to see me differently. His girlfriend noticed the change in his behavior and asked, "Are you interested in someone else?" When he nodded, she suggested they break up, and he agreed. I felt guilty for ruining their relationship, but he reassured me with a smile, saying, "It wouldn't have lasted anyway. Don't worry." His words comforted me, and after dating for 3 years, we got married. At that time, he told me, "I want to have children after we get married. Could you be a housewife to support me and our future children?" I was working at an exploitative company and didn't want to continue there, so I agreed. I quit my job and became a stay-at-home wife, deciding to support my husband. The transition from working to becoming a full-time housewife was surprisingly difficult and confusing. But I didn't mind because our newlywed life was smooth sailing, and I was at the peak of happiness. Every day was fun and filled with joy, and not having any in-law issues was a big deal for me. My husband's parents lived just a 10-minute walk from our apartment. When I first found out my in-laws lived nearby, I worried they might visit frequently and make things difficult. However, my fears were unfounded. My in-laws were incredibly kind, often coming over to patiently and kindly teach me various things. They never complained about our struggle to conceive and even told me, "I love you more than any grandchild. I've always wanted a daughter since our family is mostly men. Please let me love you like a real daughter." I adored my mother-in-law for that, and I trusted my father-in-law, who was a man of few words but very reliable. However, this warm treatment only lasted for the first few years. Over time, my in-laws' attitudes changed. My father-in-law became even quieter, and my mother-in-law's demeanor shifted so drastically that I wondered if she had a split personality, or perhaps this was her true nature all along. To give you an idea of the change, it felt like she went from +100 to -100. My once loving mother-in-law had become rather tough on me. Because we lived nearby, my mother-in-law frequently popped by our house, and when my husband wasn't around, she would nag me incessantly. She pressured me to have a child soon, saying, "I want to see my grandchild already, and that's your duty as a wife." Not too long ago, she had told me that children are gifts from heaven and that they come naturally when the time is right, so there's no need to rush. Moreover, she began comparing us to other families, saying, "I heard the family next door just had a baby, and the lady next door is pregnant too." This added even more pressure on me. However, no matter how much my mother-in-law pushed, it didn't matter if my husband wasn't on board. At the beginning of our marriage, my husband did say he wanted kids, but about a year after we got married, he seemed to lose interest altogether. Even when I tried to initiate intimacy, he would turn me away, saying, "I'm tired. Let's do it some other day," or "You're bothering me. I'm trying to play my game." When I explained this to my mother-in-law, she didn't seem to understand or empathize, and she continued to pressure me about having a child, causing my stress level to build up day by day. Feeling overwhelmed by my mother-in-law's constant nagging, I confided in my husband about how hard it was being pressured to have kids. Begrudgingly, he said, "I don't see the need to rush," but I agreed to make more effort to have a child together. So we both tried, but no matter how long we waited, I never became pregnant. During this time, my mother-in-law continued to accuse me of not putting in enough effort, sparing my husband from any blame. I started to suspect that the stress from her constant pressure was affecting my ability to conceive. Unable to withstand it anymore, my husband and I decided to seek fertility treatments. Just when I thought I could finally breathe a sigh of relief, a new problem concerning my husband arose. Ever since we started fertility treatment, my husband has been acting cold towards me. He comes home from work and immediately retreats into his room to play video games, often ignoring me when I try to talk to him. That alone would have been bearable, but things took a turn for the worse when he started getting angry at me for spending a little money on sewing materials, my hobby, on stressful days. He'd take out his frustration on me. Whenever I tried to argue back, he'd quickly lose his temper and lash out, repeatedly saying, "Who do you think is providing for you? You're just a freeloader." and continued to behave selfishly. When I remind him that I only quit my job because he wanted me to, he doesn't seem to listen. One day, amidst all the ongoing chaos, my husband, who should have been off to work, was at home playing video games. When I asked, "Aren't you going to work?" he responded, "I quit." Apparently, he had quit his job without even discussing it with me. Shocked, I asked him why, and he snapped, "Get out of my business," and got angry. Frustrated by his uncooperative attitude, I had no choice but to accept the situation. I wasn't panicking about our finances as I thought we could manage with unemployment benefits and our savings. However, it became stressful when I noticed that my husband showed no interest in finding another job. With his job gone, he started staying home all day. I wished he would go out more, but his hobby was gaming. Aside from the occasional trip to the nearby convenience store for cigarettes, he spent all day at home playing video games. Compared to when he was employed, the time we spent together increased dramatically. If this had been back when we first started dating, I might have seen it as a good thing, having more time for intimacy. But not anymore. Spending more time with my husband, who, like my mother-in-law, had gone from being a +100 to a -100, only led to more marital disputes. Gradually, we realized that even just talking to each other was becoming stressful, leading to less and less conversation. I began to wonder, what's the point of continuing this marriage? I started feeling the limits of our current lifestyle and began thinking about ways to break free from it. One day, fed up with my husband wasting his time gaming at home, I finally lost my patience and snapped, "You're not a child. Stop playing games all the time. Find a job already." In response, my husband said, "Speaking of which, my mom told me to divorce you if you can't give her a grandchild." At that moment, I felt an unexpected gratitude towards my mother-in-law. Who would have thought she'd inadvertently assist me in this way? Ironically, I had discovered I was pregnant earlier that day and had planned to share the news that night. But now, perhaps it was best to keep that to myself, allowing me some distance from both my mother-in-law and my husband. I calmly replied, "All right, understood. Here are the divorce papers." I retrieved the already filled out documents from my drawer and handed them to him. My husband, clearly unprepared for my swift agreement to divorce, let alone for me to produce ready divorce papers, froze in surprise at the sight. His usual air of condescension vanished. He was completely taken aback. Though he seemed to struggle to say something, he felt compelled to follow his mother's advice and signed the papers without much hesitation. Throughout this process, he kept stealing glances at me, trying to gauge my reaction. After finalizing the divorce papers, we agreed to meet later to discuss matters like asset division. However, in truth, we had very little to divide. My husband, known for his spending on hobbies, had poured considerable money into gaming arcades despite criticizing my spending habits. Saving money was a foreign concept to him. My husband, who hadn't saved a penny since his bachelor days, continued this habit after we got married. As a result, we hadn't accumulated any savings or assets during our marriage. When it came time to discuss dividing our belongings, I thought our conversations were straightforward. However, my husband insisted there was more to discuss and pointed to a specific bank book, saying, "We still have our savings, right?" Indeed, that account held a significant amount, and he proposed dividing it. Yet that savings account wasn't subject to property division. This money, I saved before we got married, so it doesn't count in the property division, I explained. My husband's face drained of color upon hearing this, but he quickly recovered and suggested, "But surely this condo should be considered for division. I lived here too." With a firm and somewhat cold smile, I clarified the reality. "Unfortunately, the condo is solely under my name, so legally you have no claim to it. Moreover, I've already listed it for sale, so it's best for you to find new accommodations promptly to avoid any complications," I informed him. I had diligently saved for years with the goal of upgrading to a larger home, anticipating that the condo would eventually feel cramped. Even as a working professional, I had managed to amass substantial savings and purchase the condo during my single years, establishing a financial foundation of my own. The proceeds from selling the condo would enable me to build a new home downtown. Naturally, these assets were acquired before our marriage and were not subject to division. Though my husband may have assumed otherwise, he was mistaken in his expectations. Upon learning that he wouldn't have a claim in the property division, my husband was visibly stunned. Despite our attempts to continue the conversation, he remained in a daze. With nothing more to discuss, our dialogue quickly came to an end. We proceeded to file the divorce papers, and our separation was finalized without complications. A few months later, I relocated to my parents' home where I received their unwavering support during the safe delivery of a healthy baby boy. I named him Richard, a name that signifies strength and ambition. Now, I spend each day cherishing moments with my beloved child and supportive parents. Naturally, I haven't informed my ex-husband. Should he discover the news, I can only imagine my former mother-in-law storming in, demanding, "Where's my grandchild?" After being evicted from the condo, my ex-husband returned to his parents' home, but the speed of our divorce left him reeling. He became increasingly withdrawn, rarely leaving the house, and his appearance became so unkempt that he drew attention from the police when he did venture out. It was a pitiful sight. Later, I learned he had quit his job due to strained relationships at work, where his rude behavior and poor treatment of female colleagues had isolated him completely. Unable to tolerate the situation, he'd abruptly resigned. Perhaps his true nature had always been hidden. He had only shown kindness to me, a wolf in sheep's clothing. 3 years later, I found myself managing a craft store. My regular visits to a local craft store caught the attention of the owner, who approached me one day. "I'm considering retirement. Would you be interested in taking over, Anna?" she asked. With my parents providing strong support with childcare, I had ample free time and was considering re-entering the workforce. Declining would mean the store's closure, inconveniencing many loyal customers. So, after careful consideration, I decided to take on the responsibility of running the store. Today, while serving my occasional regular customers, I was surprised by unexpected visitors. My former mother-in-law and ex-husband. "This shop suits you quite well, doesn't it?" they commented casually. "Sure, Mom. Look, this fabric would look great on you," my ex-husband added, attempting to be congenial. Annoyed by their transparent flattery, I cut to the chase and asked, "So, what brings you here?" That's when my former mother-in-law blurted out something nonsensical. "Give me my grandchild back." Apparently, she had somehow learned about my child and had intentions of making him the heir to their family home. "You were already pregnant when I brought up divorce. Why didn't you tell me?" "I wouldn't have agreed to divorce," accused my ex-husband. "I wanted the divorce, obviously. If you had known I was pregnant, you would have done anything to stop it," I retorted sharply to my ex-husband and former mother-in-law. Then my former mother-in-law continued her nonsense. "So, are you going to give me my grandchild or not?" "I want to be with my grandchild as soon as possible. You've had him for 3 years now. It's my turn." Stunned, I was interrupted by the arrival of my parents and my son Richard, who appeared with concern, asking, "What's going on? Is there a problem?" It turned out they had been alerted by a regular customer and rushed to the shop. Then, as Richard held hands with my parents, my former mother-in-law exclaimed, "Oh, how adorable. He looks just like my son did as a child. Look, I'm your grandma." She attempted to approach Richard, but before I could intervene, Richard firmly declared, "I only have one grandma," and clung tightly to my mother's side. Sensing tension, my mother calmly suggested to my former mother-in-law, "Under the circumstances, it might be best if you leave." Ignoring her, my ex-husband demanded, "Just hand over the kid," as he tried to forcefully snatch Richard away from my parents. Stepping in front of him to protect Richard, I was easily brushed aside due to my smaller stature. "Richard, be careful." With my ex-husband just inches away from grabbing him, a sudden movement caught us all by surprise. "What?" Looking up, I saw my father, who had executed a flawless over-the-shoulder throw. It turned out my father had been a police officer and had competed in national judo championships during his youth. My ex-husband, unaware of this background, was left speechless from the pain, staring at my father with a mix of astonishment and helplessness. "Well then, if you plan on causing any more trouble for my children or grandchild, we may have to involve the authorities." "What will it be?" my father asked firmly, displaying his police badge to my former mother-in-law. Caught off guard, she paled and hastily grabbed my ex-husband's hand before fleeing. Since that day, I've had no contact with either of them, nor do I care to know their whereabouts. A few years later, inspired by my father's bravery, Richard expressed his desire to follow in his footsteps and become a police officer. "When I grow up, I'm going to be a cop too, and I'll protect you," he declared. Now, he's dedicated to his studies with a focus on achieving his goal. Under my father's mentorship, Richard practices judo and has gained recognition among his peers for his skill. As for me, I'll continue to support and watch over my beloved son as he grows.
there's no ticket for you. I'd be embarrassed to be seen with someone from the bottom. Go home before anyone sees you. These were the words spoken to me by my sister-in-law named Erica, at a concert venue where we had come to listen to a classical concert, arranged by my in-laws for the family. The tickets were arranged by Erica, but I was the only one without a ticket. Moreover, she even said, "It's 100 years too early for commoners like you to sit with us at a classical concert. You're an eyesore, so could you just disappear?" Since the beginning of my marriage, I've been disliked by this sister-in-law, Erica, and have been harassed by her. At that moment, someone stood up for me and said, "Then why don't you leave?" My name is Sarah. I am 27 years old and a preschool teacher. My parents live in the countryside, where they run a small restaurant. We are not wealthy, but I believe we are a happy, ordinary family. I met my husband, Greg, at a friend's wedding. We hit it off while talking and started to hang out, including with the couple who introduced us. After his persistent pursuit, our relationship deepened. Eventually, I accepted his proposal. I was overjoyed and felt incredibly happy, but soon I would face an unbelievable issue. As a couple, it was natural to greet each other's parents. With my parents, there was no issue, and they were very happy, saying they were glad to have a reliable son. They even treated us to the restaurant's cuisine. What is this? It's so delicious. He was overly delighted, which made my parents smile fondly. Thus, our visit to my parents' home went smoothly. In contrast, the visit to Greg's parents' home was a different story. His father is the CEO of a major music instrument company, his mother is a pianist, and Greg is the vice president, set to inherit the business. I was nervous due to their affluent and respectable family background. However, upon entering the living room, his parents warmly welcomed us, all but one person. Greg's sister, Erica, stared at me and then started snickering. What's with this person's tacky outfit? It's unbelievable to come to greet someone in that. What brand is it? She rudely said upon our first meeting. She was a music college student, 5 years younger than Greg. Though my dress was non-branded, it was decent and appropriate for a greeting. I felt embarrassed wondering if it was really that funny. According to Greg, being too fond of him as a brother, she had harassed every girlfriend he had brought home. Moreover, she had grown up spoiled, unable to do any household chores. However, the saving grace was that the only one being unreasonable was Erica. My father-in-law scolded her. "Erica, how can you speak so rudely to a guest we're meeting for the first time? Stop it." My mother-in-law also admonished her, and the situation was diffused. After the introductions were done, our marriage was officially decided, and we were allowed to build a house on the grounds of Greg's parents' estate. I moved in immediately and was unpacking when Erica suddenly entered. "Hey, are you seriously planning to marry my brother?" Her sudden familiarity was off-putting. I dislike such people. So, I deliberately spoke to her in a distant, polite manner. "Yes, I am." "You've got some nerve. Do you know what out of your league means? Even if my parents accept you, I don't. That's okay. I don't need your permission. However, I do intend to marry Greg, and I would like to get along with you, if possible." Erica seemed taken aback when I talked back to her. She turned red and said, "What? This woman is so annoying. Greg, what do you see in her? She doesn't suit you at all." In response, Greg defended me, "Well, everything about her is perfect. If I had to say, it's her thoughtful and intelligent nature. Also, her independence. If you're not going to help, just leave." Okay. But you know, if you're going to be a part of this family, You should at least be able to play an instrument or two. You can play the piano, right? Oh, sorry, poor people probably never learned. Erica, currently a senior in college, had even won a piano competition. Facing a smirking Erica, Greg said, "All right, let's go to the main house now." Then he whispered to me quietly, "Sarah, play that for her." Upon entering the main family house, the in-laws were surprised. And Erica seated me in front of the piano. Sarah is going to perform now. I wonder what she'll play. Since she's a preschool teacher, maybe just Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Despite the ridiculing sister-in-law and the astonished in-laws, I began to play a challenging piece by Liszt. After I finished playing, the room fell silent for a moment but was soon filled with vigorous applause. Incredible. That was a professional-level performance. What a clear, sparkling sound. Father-in-law also added, "That's true. It's a shame to only have you as a preschool teacher. Where did you learn to play like this?" Greg then explained. I had loved music from a young age, always playing with toy pianos. I would listen intently to the piano sounds from a neighbor's house. Although I wanted to learn, my family couldn't afford lessons then. One day, a woman from the neighborhood, who had graduated from a music college, noticed me listening outside her house and spoke to me. She started teaching me piano whenever I visited her home. This child should learn from a proper teacher. She has talent. She even came to my parents to tell them this. She then introduced me to a professor from a prestigious music university, a judge at piano competitions, who was quite renowned. This professor, Ms. Hansen, accepted me as a scholarship student when she saw me play. I would travel to her house by bus for lessons, which were strict and demanding. But she taught me thoroughly. Thanks to her, I advanced and even won awards at competitions. Though there was talk of attending a music university, it seemed impractical. There was the option of scholarships, but music school costs were more than just tuition. Since I loved children and just wanted a place to play the piano, I moved to the city, graduated from junior college, and became a preschool teacher. After Greg finished explaining, mother-in-law said, "Even without a music degree, if you have that level of skill, you can perform anywhere. Your piano playing has such clear and aligned notes. I think you can heal many people with your music." Father-in-law nodded in agreement. Well, for an amateur, I guess it was okay. Erica had hoped to embarrass me, but failed and looked frustrated. Seeing her sulky face was satisfying, though this incident made her dislike me even more. I work full-time at a preschool, so I try to help with household chores at my in-laws on my days off. Whenever my mother-in-law was away for errands or performances, Erica would invariably make snide remarks or harass me. "Hey, I'm hungry, make some snacks." When she had no classes, she would laze around and give me tasks. Diane, a housemaid helping out, would say, "Miss, I can prepare the snacks." But Erica would sneer, "It's okay, this person is our family's maid. Diane, don't interfere." Then, after I made the snacks, Erica would throw them at me, saying, "What's this? Gross. You're terrible at this." Once, she even kicked a bucket of water I had prepared for mopping, causing me to slip and fall. Oops, sorry. That wasn't on purpose. But good, right? What's that saying about dripping water? As Erica left laughing loudly, Diane looked worriedly at me and said, "Are you okay?" "She is too much." She comforted me while helping me clean up. "I'm okay." I could only manage a wry smile and somehow get through the situation. One day, I was practicing on the piano that my father-in-law had prepared at our home. My job at a Christian preschool involves playing music during morning services. church masses, and events. That's why I never missed a day of practice. Such a poor performance. Despite it being our home, Erica would come in uninvited just to make snide remarks. She should practice herself if she has time to criticize others. Lately, she hasn't seemed to practice at all. Ignoring her. I suddenly realized she was messing with the props and costumes prepared for a Christmas play. Don't touch those. I couldn't help but raise my voice. Not liking that I shouted at her, Erica reacted by breaking one of the props. Enough already. I couldn't stay silent any longer and confronted her, which made her snap back. Don't get cocky. For a poor person. This tacky thing is better off broken, it's for the kids' sake. With those parting words, she stormed out, slamming the door. Stunned by the incident, I stood there dazed but soon hurried to fix what was broken. That evening, I couldn't keep silent about it and told Greg. He was furious and scolded Erica, and hearing about it. My father-in-law also gave her a stern talking to. I'm sorry, Sarah. She's really out of line. He apologized with a sigh. No, it's okay. It's also my fault for bringing important things to the house. No, it's not normal to break them. Has she been harassing you in other ways? Tell me if anything happens. Just having his support was enough for me. Then, a change finally came. Erica, who used to come to bother me whenever she had free time, graduated from university and got a job at her father's company. Relieved that I wouldn't be disturbed during the day anymore, I felt a deep sense of relief. About 6 months after Erica started her job, her father arranged a match for her. Initially, she wasn't keen, but upon meeting the gentleman, Ben, she seemed to quite like him as he was refreshing and kind. And their marriage was quickly decided. Engaged, she would be busy with him and wedding preparations. And wouldn't have time to bother me anymore. I looked forward to this and felt relieved. One day, during a relaxed moment after a meal at my in-laws' house, the in-laws made a suggestion. It's been a while since we've gone to a classical concert as a family, hasn't it? Let's go to one. It's been busy, but it's nice having Sarah join the family. Everyone was pleased by his suggestion, and I was of course delighted. Thank you so much. I'm really happy. Just then, Erica remarked. Well, Sarah must be happy, since poor people don't usually get to go to classical concerts. However, unbeknownst to her, this wasn't my first time at a live performance. Listening to live music is a learning experience. I had been to a concert before with Ms. Hanson. But I didn't mention it because Erica was being troublesome. The interpretation of music changes with different conductors and musicians, making it a valuable learning experience. My father-in-law showed us various concert options and asked which one I liked. I shyly pointed to one. This one would be nice. Then, Erica asked, Hey, Dad, can I take Ben to the concert too? Of course. Then, I'll arrange the tickets, my father-in-law replied. My mother-in-law mentioned that she might be able to arrange tickets through her connections. No need, I'll handle the ticket arrangements. He's well connected, and I can get it done faster. Erica interjected, so she took over the ticket arrangements. Unfortunately, on the day of the concert, my father-in-law had sudden work commitments and couldn't make it. So, the 5 of us, mother-in-law, Greg, Erica, Ben, and I went to the concert venue together. Erica received tickets from someone she seemed to know and returned to us. Then she began handing them out to everyone, but she walked right past me and said, Okay, that's everyone's. Let's go. What about mine? I was the only one without a ticket. There's no ticket for you. I'd be embarrassed to be seen with someone from the bottom. Go home before anyone sees you. Furthermore, she said, it's 100 years too early for commoners like you to sit with us at a classical concert. You're an eyesore, so could you just disappear? There was no reason for her to say that to me. I wasn't invited by her. I came only because of my in-laws' kindness. This is ridiculous. What do you want from me? Do you dislike me that much? Fine, I'll go home. I don't want to be in the same space as a woman like you either. As I was about to leave, seeing Erica smirking, Greg shouted at her. Wait. There's no need for Sarah to go home. Erica, enough is enough. If you don't like it, you leave. It was the first time my usually gentle husband got so angry. Did you think I didn't know anything? You've been doing nothing but petty harassment to Sarah, haven't you? What? It's your fault. It's because you married a poor person like her. Who do you think you are? We are not royalty or nobility. We're just ordinary people too. Speak only after you become independent like Sarah. You should be shameful, just lying around the house and doing nothing. Greg was so stern that even Erica was taken aback. Then she turned to look at my mother-in-law for support. Mom, I'm not wrong, am I? This woman doesn't belong in this house, right? Then my mother-in-law quietly began to speak. Yes, you are wrong. Greg is right. Did you think I didn't know anything? You have always been mean to Sarah. Your heart is poorer than any poor person. And, despite talking big about music, you haven't touched the piano lately, have you? Your skills are getting rusty. You were indeed great in the past. But you've been clinging to that past glory, becoming arrogant, and neglecting your practice. I can't help it. I'm busy with my new job now. Busy? You had plenty of time to harass and be snide to Sarah before you got the job, right? You hadn't been practicing since back then. Caught out by my mother-in-law, Erica turned red. Indeed, she had stopped seriously engaging with the piano without anyone realizing it. Like any instrument, if you don't practice daily, your skills will get rusty. Diane told me about what you've said and done. It's really pitiful. Since you insisted on handling the tickets, the responsibility for not getting one lies with you. If you don't like it, you should leave. What, even you, Mom? Fine, I feel sick. I'm leaving. Ben, let's go. As Erica tried to pull him away, he firmly shook off her hand. You go if you want. I'm disappointed. What was that all about? From what I heard, you've been verbally abusing your sister-in-law regularly. I really dislike people who are cruel like that. What? Now utterly discredited, Erica lost all her standing. Ben turned to my mother-in-law and declared, I apologize, but I cannot lead a married life with someone like Erica. I will also apologize to her father, but I must call off the engagement. Yes, that's understandable. I apologize for showing you such an embarrassing scene. As my mother-in-law apologized, Erica said, Huh? What's that? If you break off the engagement, I'll demand compensation. Are you all crazy? With that, she threw down her ticket and stormed out. My husband picked up the ticket and said, Now, this is for you, Sarah. Let's go together, Ben. He urged us, and we entered the venue. The majestic sound of the orchestra for the second time in my life deeply moved me. It was fascinating that the same music could sound so different depending on the performers and the conductors. The unique ambience of the concert hall allowed us to fully experience the conductor's presence. His mastery with the baton, the musicians' movements, and the powerful resonance of their instruments. Upon our return to my in-laws' home, we found Erica there. and her father had just come back as well. Suddenly, he slapped Erica across the face. Shocked, Erica heard her father angrily declare, "What a disgrace you are." Today's incident aside, it seems you've also caused unbelievable trouble at the company. There was, of course, a reason for his anger. Despite being employed at her father's company, Erica behaved arrogantly during training sessions, showing no serious engagement and often threatening senior employees by saying, "How dare you speak to the president's daughter like that? I'll tell my father." Besides, she frequently skipped work and went off somewhere. Her attitude had severely damaged her reputation at the company, leading to a direct confrontation from frustrated colleagues. Moreover, despite being engaged, she had an affair with a married male colleague, and often sneaked out during work hours with him. The man's wife contacted my father-in-law, the president. "You're fired, as well as that male employee. I cannot oversee your life any longer. It's time you lived on your own and faced the harsh realities of the world." Following this, Erica was expelled from the family home. She boasted defiantly as she left that she would enter competitions and earn more through her music career than any of us. However, it turned out she was unable to win even a single prize at any competition she entered. That was natural. Her performances, fueled solely by a desire for revenge, lacked soul and failed to move anyone. Eventually, unable to win awards or even secure performance opportunities, Erica found herself living in a shabby apartment, struggling with basic housekeeping and leading a miserable life. A friend of mine mentioned seeing her working a cash register at a supermarket, where she was often scolded by a fearsome older part-time worker. She was now living the ordinary life she had once scorned, facing hardships she had never imagined. In the meantime, encouraged by my mother-in-law and coached by Ms. Hansen, I continued to refine my piano skills and achieved second place in a prestigious competition dominated by music college graduates. Though my main job remains being a preschool teacher, I also perform occasionally at nursing homes and wedding venues, playing for the children and seeing their sparkling smiles, as well as experiencing the thrill of performing in large venues, have become invaluable parts of my daily life. Sometimes, Greg plays the violin while I play the piano, and we enjoy duets together. I also perform duets with my mother-in-law, which are incredibly enjoyable. Surrounded by my beloved family and music, I look forward to continuing this happy life.
On the other side of the video call was my sister, dressed in a glamorous outfit, smiling brightly. "Hi, Ashley. Congratulations on your wedding. What are you doing right now?" "I'm in the middle of changing my outfit." She then showed her full outfit on the screen. It was exactly the same dress I had chosen. I was wondering what a wedding without relatives would be like. I'd love to see it. Pretending to be innocent, my sister was actually trying to one-up me. "Okay," I replied. My sister looked at the screen and exclaimed in surprise, "What? What's going on at your venue?" "I am Ashley. I'm 30 years old and work in an office. My fiancé, Jason, who is a year older than me, and I have decided to get married. Our common hobby is watching professional baseball. We met at a stadium, and he proposed to me on our way back from a game. The game was tense, with runners on base but no points scored. And they were about to start the lucky 7th inning defense. But the enemy's attack in the 7th inning was unexpected." The enemy? That was my sister. Hannah, for years my junior, certainly has a pretty face, prettier than mine. She has a slightly warped personality. She always wants to imitate me, always has. Whether it's club activities, clothes, or hairstyles, she copied everything about me. Thanks to her pretty face, whatever she does seems to suit her better, making me feel like a degraded version of her, which is miserable. Moreover, she acts as if she was the one who made these choices before me. Even when I complained to our parents, they would somehow always take her side. We get along as sisters. But there have been times when I've felt bitter about how adorable she is. But I was really shocked when she started imitating me even in marriage. After going through steps like introducing each other to our parents and having face-to-face meetings, we finally started preparing for the wedding. We visited several venues, compared estimates and dates, and thought deeply about it. Just as much as predicting the starting lineup of our favorite baseball team. Thanks to our efforts, we found a place where we could hold the ceremony. On the anniversary of when we started dating. It felt like fate. Let's have our ceremony here. A few days later, I got a call from her. Hi, Ashley. I've decided to get married too. Really? Congratulations. I genuinely congratulated her. She laughed happily. Since you're getting married, I thought I should too. I rushed my boyfriend into proposing. Really? Is it okay for her to get married just because I am? As I was dumbfounded, she said. And guess what? The date of the wedding ended up being the same as yours. What? It's like, the date you guys chose is a really good day, right? We thought we'd take advantage of that too. A really good day. It was, but that's not why we chose it. We decided to hold our ceremony on our anniversary. There are other good days, aren't there? Why would she do something so unreasonable? What about the guests? Huh? Why not just have them come to mine? What? Because, it's more fun for the attendees if the main character is cuter. You couldn't possibly make it exciting like that, could you? Huh? That's why I've already contacted all the relatives to attend my ceremony. Well, I have to go now. See you. With that, she unilaterally ended the call. She's already contacted all the relatives. How quick. It feels like being caught off guard by a tag up after the third foul fly. If I contact the relatives now, all I can say is it's on the same day as my sister's. Those who receive the call will think I'm the unreasonable one and feel sorry for my sister. That would be the worst. Until now, it was just a slightly annoying level. But she has seriously invaded my territory. We have two options: change the date of our ceremony or proceed as planned. It's like either a change-up or a straight in baseball. I cried and apologized to my husband for my sister's unreasonableness. When I consulted with my parents, they said, "We want you to talk it out and resolve it with Hannah." But it seemed like they expected me to give in. I cried again, feeling frustrated and sad. To ruin the eldest daughter's wedding and be happy about it. They are no longer a sister or even a parent to me. My husband listened to me seriously. But, your sister always copies everything, right? If we change our wedding date, won't she just copy that and overlap it again? That's true. Now I'm sure of it. She would do that. If I painfully adjust the schedule and she ruins it again. The memory of our wedding would be summed up in one word: worst. I don't want that. If that's the case, there's no point in changing the date. Let's cherish our anniversary and proceed with the ceremony as planned. But, it will be a ceremony without any family or relatives attending. Let's think about that. Jason and I put our heads together. We decided not to change the wedding date. When I declared this, my parents panicked. They were horrified at the prospect of their two daughters competing for attendees on the same day. Think it over. It will bother the relatives. At least postpone it by half a year. You don't say the same thing to Hannah. It was Hannah who did this on her own. You both think everything will be resolved if I just endure, right? I won't do as you think anymore. It's my once-in-a-lifetime ceremony. That's not what we meant. My parents were flustered as I vented my anger openly. But soon they approached me with stern faces. Apologize. Neither Dad nor I meant any harm. It's disrespectful to your parents. What are they saying? If I were the umpire, such parents would be out. I'm no longer your daughter or anything else. Goodbye. Thus, I broke up with my parents in a fight. I didn't feel sad, but rather, I felt completely relieved. They're free agents now. When my sister heard about my breakup with our parents, she immediately contacted me. Ashley, what did you say to Dad and Mom? Both of them look really scary, and the atmosphere at home is awful. I told them we're not changing the wedding date. What? On the other end of the phone, my sister gasped. But all the relatives are coming to my side, right? Dad and Mom too. Are you okay with that? It's fine. Do as you like. Since I've cut ties with my parents, the relatives don't matter to me either. Wow, really? Well, let's both have a wonderful wedding. I find my sister's brazenness incredible. She's the type to cry foul when she's not even hit. The reason our sisterly relationship has been smooth up until now is entirely because I've been enduring it. I've been patiently bearing it to maintain our family. That might have encouraged her shamelessness. By the way, Ashley, what did you decide for the invitations? What kind of design? What color? Is the addressing handwritten or printed? I haven't decided yet. Really? Decide quickly. I want to use it as a reference because you have good taste. That means she's declaring she'll copy. Just as Jason predicted, she would follow me if I changed the wedding plans. Realizing how much I had been enduring, I felt tremendous stress from her copying habit. But wait. This could be an opportunity. An opportunity to stop unnecessary endurance. An opportunity to give a taste of their own medicine to my troublesome sister and insensitive parents. I have a few options, but oh, wait, I'll send you the pictures. I deliberately decided to be kind to my sister. Unaware of my intentions, she rejoiced with a purring voice. Wow. I'm so happy. As expected, I can rely on you, Ashley. I thought, rely on me if you want. I can pull off a trick play or two as well. Since then, I've had no contact with my parents. The ties are cut. But I'm still in touch with my sister. Sure enough, she chose the same invitations I did. And she even had the decency to send one to me. As the wedding approached, she continued to probe. So, about your wedding. I responded properly. As the day drew closer, her inquiries became more frequent. The color of the dress. The type of live flowers. The male-to-female ratio of the venue staff. My irritation grew with every question from my sister, who wanted to know everything. Accompanying a message saying, I decided on this dress. Doesn't it look good? Was a photo of my sister wearing the exact same dress I had chosen. If she wants to copy that much, let her. For the first time since she overlapped her wedding day with mine, I called my sister. Hello? So, I made some changes to the wedding menu. What? My sister was surprised. Why? What did you change? I upgraded the meat dish. I also chose a better drink course and asked to add another appetizer. I see. What's it like? Do you have any photos? I want to see. Sure, but what will you do with them? I'll use them as a reference. Her use as a reference means use as a model, which means do the same thing. If you want to see photos, I can send them. But make sure to discuss it well with your husband. Changing the menu can significantly alter the wedding costs. You said before that you couldn't afford any more expenses. I know that. But if you and Jason can do it, so can we. Good luck with that. She insisted I send the photos right away before hanging up. I sighed heavily, and my husband, concerned, said, "Why don't you stop contacting your sister? It's stressing you out, right?" It is stressful. But I can't stop now. I've decided to give her a taste of her own medicine. If I give up now, I'll end up walking the same path as before. I can't let that happen. It's okay. Don't ask me to stop. This is a battle between sisters by blood. What? I will fight and I will win. This is our WBC, the Women's Bridal Classic, you fool. On the wedding day, Jason and I were nervous. There was the normal tension of heading into the highlight of our lives. And the worry about whether everything was really okay. But once the main event started, that tension blew away. The guests were all warmly watching over us. I was so touched that I cried. The reception started smoothly, and I was at the peak of happiness. I kept my smartphone nearby during the reception to take photos with the guests. Then, my phone rang. I checked the screen, thinking I couldn't answer right now, but the caller was my sister, Hannah. I hesitated for a moment, but then moved to a corner of the venue to answer the call. On the other side of the video call was my sister, dressed in a glamorous outfit, smiling brightly. "Hi, Ashley. Congratulations on your wedding. What are you doing right now?" "I'm in the middle of changing outfits." She then showed her full outfit on the screen. It was exactly the same dress I had chosen. I was wondering what a wedding without relatives would be like. "I'd like to see it." "Show me." "Okay." I switched the camera to show the venue. My sister saw it and exclaimed in surprise. "What? What's going on at your venue? It looks like a cocktail party." "That's right. It's not a typical reception. We made it a paper attendance wedding party." "What?" When my sister decided to overlap her wedding date with ours. We judged that a normal reception would be difficult. Honestly, we were at a loss. But after consulting with the venue staff, they were very supportive. They suggested this paper attendance wedding party. It's not a formal reception, but a casual party. We handle the opening remarks, the toast, and the closing remarks. The rest of the time is for mingling and recreation. We ask guests to cover the attendance fee, and we don't accept wedding gifts. The meal is buffet style. Normally, receptions serve a full course, which requires a lot of space on the table. This limits the number of people who can sit at one table. But with a buffet, we can increase the number of people around a table. More people at a table means we can invite more guests. The number of people we invite determines our budget. So the more guests, the larger the budget. And unlike wedding gifts, with a fee, it's easier to manage the finances. We decided to upgrade the dishes within our budget. The reason I can afford to be on the phone at the edge of the venue, even though I'm the main character, is that it's a casual party. I didn't know about this. I wasn't told. I didn't say anything. Why? If I told you, you'd just copy it. I don't want you to ruin this important ceremony any further. If I tell you, then I have to ask the bosses and relatives I've invited to not come after all. My sister was gaping, looking a bit pale on the screen. That dress looks good on you. It's the dress I chose. Huh? Oh, yeah. Huh? Aren't you wearing it too? You said you were going to change into it. I've already worn it for the photo shoot, so I won't wear it today. We're changing into our baseball team's uniforms. What? We've invited our baseball-watching friends too. It's going to be a blast. But that's nothing like my wedding. Maybe so. Well, let's both make it a wonderful day. Bye-bye. I waved at my sister with a triumphant smile. It was refreshing. It felt like I had settled a muddy match. I returned to the mingling guests with a light heart. Later, I sent postcards to relatives announcing our marriage. According to relatives who called to congratulate us, our parents strangely avoided mentioning me on the day of the wedding. When asked if there was a fight, they replied, "That child is no longer ours." Oh. So I'm no longer a child of that house. Just what I wanted. I'll gladly discard parents who take my sacrifices and patience for granted. My sister was reportedly emotionally unstable during the latter half of her reception. She had been ecstatic as the center of attention until then. But after changing her outfit, she became fidgety and unsettled, nervously monitoring the staff's movements and the flow of the reception. She even asked if the food could be changed now or if anything could be cancelled. Utterly unreasonable. The venue staff must have been troubled. As long as my sister is imitating me, if anything goes wrong, she can say, "I did the same as my sister," and escape responsibility. But this time, at the grand stage of the reception, that escape was not available because our receptions were completely different. The responsibility for upgrading the menu or changing the dress code, disregarding the budget, was all on my sister. She must have started searching for a realistic line in a panic, but it was too late. Trying to fix things in the middle of the reception, after half of it was over, was absurd. A relative who spoke to me said the food was wonderful. It was a special menu, tailored to match the dishes at my wedding party. With the upgraded menu, the cost of the meal alone must have been enormous. The cost of changing outfits, including dressing and makeup fees, must have added up too. It was like signing free agents without considering the budget of the team formation. And the result? Needless expenses piled up. Relations with her husband's family deteriorated, which affected their marriage. Like a relief pitcher who gets burned and gives up many runs. A marriage that starts under such conditions isn't likely to go well. They separated immediately after returning from their honeymoon. But my sister can't even return to her supposed safe haven, her parents' home. With me gone, the relationship between her and our parents quickly destabilized. She told me everything even though I didn't ask, probably in order to blame me. Divorce seems only a matter of time. Not sorry at all. If she finds someone else, I hope she thinks and acts on her own next time. After the wedding chaos settled, my husband and I visited his parents' home to greet them. We thanked his parents for their understanding about not having a traditional wedding ceremony and reception, but a wedding party instead. They surprised us with a luxurious cake they had prepared. The room was decorated beautifully with flowers. They warmly welcomed us, saying, "Well done" at the party, despite the fact that they couldn't see their son's big moment. Because of my circumstances, they were so kind. I was so grateful and moved to tears. My husband and I cut the wedding cake in front of the camera his parents had prepared. Our wedding cake cutting. It was a game where we had given up many runs to the opponent's lucky 7. But we hit a grand slam home run in return. A fresh start with the old family swept away. From now on, we will surely be happy. Hello, Mother. Thank you so much for taking care of the kids. My daughter-in-law named Ashley said in a buoyant tone. Don't worry about it. We were looking forward to seeing our grandchildren. That's reassuring to hear. It's really a dream come true to be able to look after them, isn't it? Then, Ashley presented an outrageous demand with a mischievous smile. Since I get to see my adorable grandchildren, I'll be taking $500 for each of them. You're joking, right? Then Ashley's smile vanished, and she responded seriously. I'm not joking. I'm entrusting my precious children to someone else. It's only natural to charge a rental fee. Someone else? A rental fee? Hearing those words from my daughter-in-law made me feel sad. Ashley continued without any hint of remorse. For instance, men without girlfriends pay to date a rental girlfriend, right? It's the same thing. My husband Robert and I looked at each other in dismay. If that's how you feel, we won't take care of the kids either. Neglecting childcare, huh? This is why the elderly are disliked in society nowadays. I have to catch a plane soon, so I'll be off. Wait, Ashley. My name is Hillary Brown. My beloved husband, Robert, and I have been together for over 40 years. It's been a journey filled with endless hardships, but through them, our bond as a couple has deepened, and it's been an invaluable continuum of time. We married in our 20s and had a hard time conceiving. Both sets of parents were eager to see their grandchildren, which increasingly pressured me. However, Robert always supported me kindly. He helped with fertility treatments, and after work, he often bought for me some herbal tea and foods that are rumored to bless couples with children. Thanks to his efforts, we were blessed with a son, Ned, in our 10th year of marriage. We hoped he would grow up to be a straightforward and honest person. Ned was frail as a child, and I couldn't take my eyes off him, but Robert did everything he could to help, and I never felt the burden of parenting. Ned grew up healthy after starting school, becoming the star of his high school basketball team and even competing in national tournaments. Though he struggled with his studies, he managed to graduate from college and began working as a salesperson at a well-known electronics manufacturer, where he met and married Ashley at the age of 30. When our first grandchild was born, Robert, reminded of our less fortunate times, cried with sobs of joy. Despite all the hardships, we overcame them together, and now we're enjoying a relaxed retirement life after Robert's retirement. I haven't seen them recently, but I wonder how the grandchildren are doing. Robert often murmurs this sadly while looking out the window. Ned currently has 4 children, and it seems he and his wife have a good marriage, but they're both busy, so opportunities to see our grandchildren are rare. They live far from us in a downtown apartment, and it's difficult to visit them without aligning our schedules. Both are busy, and suddenly showing up might be a bother. Occasionally, Ned calls to ask for a little financial help. They must surely need it with as many as 4 children. Our eldest grandson must be starting elementary school next year. We need to buy him a school backpack. It would be nice if they could come for Easter or Christmas holidays. I wonder if they're too busy. Whenever a special on school backpacks airs on TV, we eagerly await the day we see our grandchildren again. One day, out of the blue, we had a call from Ned. "Mom, it's been a while. How have you been?" "Same as always here. How about you?" Is everyone well? You should come and show us your children's faces sometime. Dad has been looking forward to it. Everyone's fine here, so don't worry about us. Plus, I'm planning to bring the kids over soon for a visit. Really? Dad will be so happy to hear that. Robert is currently in the backyard tending to the vegetable garden. Imagine his joy when he hears that Ned is bringing our grandchildren. Also, I have a favor to ask you too regarding the kids. What is it? Is it about money again? I understand it must be tough with school starting and all. Thanks for always being there. I really appreciate it. But this time, it's something a bit different. We're actually going on a trip abroad soon. We'd like you to look after the kids while we're away. Oh, going abroad? That's sudden. Weren't you two still due for a honeymoon? Yeah, that's right. Ashley and I have been so busy with work that we never found the time. But last week, Ashley won a pair of tickets for an overseas trip in a local shopping district raffle. I see. Well, have a great time. So when are you bringing the kids over? We'll all come over this Saturday, so please wait for us. The kids are really looking forward to seeing you too. All right. I'll prepare some delicious food and wait. Even after hanging up, my excitement didn't subside. When Robert returned from the garden and saw my face, he asked with a slightly amused expression. What's up? You look like you've heard some good news. My husband, always by my side in both happy and sad times, could instantly understand even the slightest change in my mood. Trying to hold back my laughter, I shared the news of our son and his family's upcoming visit. Really? That sounds exciting. On the appointed Saturday, our son and his wife arrived with their 4 children. As the rental car pulled into the driveway, I couldn't wait any longer and burst out the front door. Mom, it's been a while. It's good to see you're doing well. Ned, who got out of the driver's seat, said this with an unchanged smile from the past. As the children climbed out of the back seat, they started running around energetically. They must have been bored during the long drive, and I watched them with a fond smile, but I noticed something off. Their clothes looked somewhat dirty. Faded with time and worn out in places, some even had holes. Considering there are 4 children, I thought perhaps money was tight, but then I saw Ashley, who had gotten out of the passenger seat, dressed quite neatly. Her outfit was modern and casual, complete with expensive-looking accessories. The contrast between her attire and the children's was too stark, and it caught me off guard. Hello, Mother. The strong scent of her perfume hit my nostrils, and I instinctively covered my nose. Ashley, seemingly unaware of the overpowering smell, quickly moved toward the house. We'll head out as soon as we drop off the kids. Ned explained in place of Ashley. Once inside, the children had already started running around the house as if it was their own, with Robert frantically trying to keep up. Yay, a monster. Run. Dear, I understand you're happy, but please don't overdo it. Robert was already out of breath, patting his waist with the back of his hand. Play horsey. Saying this, one child climbed onto Robert's back, and the other children gathered, demanding to play horsey. Thank you so much for happily taking care of the children, Mother. Ashley said in a buoyant tone. It's okay, don't worry about it. We've been looking forward to seeing our grandchildren too. As I cheerfully responded, Ashley suddenly switched to a familiar tone and whispered in my ear. That's great to hear, I'm relieved. It's really a dream come true to be able to look after them, isn't it? Then, with a sly smile, Ashley made an outrageous demand. Since you get to see your adorable grandchildren, I'll be taking $500 for each of them. It took me a moment to understand what she was saying. What did you just say? So, as I was saying, please pay $500 per child for leaving them with you. I was utterly astonished. It would make sense if the parent was covering the costs for childcare, but the reverse was just unreasonable. You're joking, right? Then Ashley's smile vanished, and she responded seriously. I'm not joking at all. I'm entrusting my precious children to someone else. It's only natural to pay a rental fee. Someone else? A rental fee? The words pouring out of my daughter-in-law's mouth moved me from anger to sadness. Robert put the child down from his back and came over. Ashley, that's quite an unreasonable thing to say. Taking care of children isn't easy. But Ashley responded nonchalantly, without a hint of embarrassment. What was common sense in the past is nonsense now. For instance, men without girlfriends pay to date a rental girlfriend, right? It's the same thing. Robert and I looked at each other in dismay. No way. If that's your attitude, we can't take care of the kids. Are you planning to neglect childcare? This is why the elderly are disliked nowadays. Saying this, Ashley grabbed Ned's arm and tried to leave. Ned, silent and obedient, followed his wife. Wait, we're not done talking. Robert tried to stop them, but Ashley didn't even look back. We have a plane to catch soon, so we must be going. Wait, Ashley. I suddenly realized something and hurriedly called out to Ashley. It looks like the luggage is still in the car. What are you planning to do about the children's clothes? Oh, you can buy those for them. We didn't prepare any change of clothes for the kids. She said this nonchalantly and got into the car. Please, Mother. Make sure you transfer $2,000 for all 4 kids to Ned's account by Monday. With that parting shot, my daughter-in-law and son drove off. What was she thinking, not even preparing clothes for her children? Since we couldn't let them keep wearing the same clothes, we decided to go shopping at a shopping mall far from our home. But I was worried whether the 4 children could stay calm at home while we were gone. I'm worried about leaving the kids at home alone. I wish someone could go buy clothes for them. I'll take their rough measurements and go buy them myself. That would be a big help. Just hang in there a little longer, can you stay still? Robert said sternly, and another child kicked at his leg. Take that, you villain. The child, seeing his siblings scolded, must have thought they were being attacked by a bad guy. How can we make them understand that grandparents are not the enemy? We could only sigh. Are you really okay on your own? Call me immediately if something happens. Saying that, Robert went into town. It would be a lie to say I wasn't anxious about looking after 4 mischievous children on my own as I've grown older. Just when I thought they were all quietly playing games in the room, one of them had somehow dashed outside. He ran around the field, wreaking havoc on the crops, and when he returned covered in mud, I felt so defeated that I ended up laughing instead of scolding. By chance, there was one set of pajamas left that Ned used to wear as a child, so I hurried to bathe him, but he resisted soaking in the bath and tried to escape the bathroom. Do you bathe every day? Since the children arrived, I had been constantly bothered by a smell. Not just their tattered clothes, but a body odor permeated the air as soon as they moved. When I took off their clothes, they were covered in grime, and I thought they hadn't bathed in days. Remembering Ashley's fashionable attire and strong perfume, I felt helpless. After struggling, I finally managed to finish the bath, but then the other children were nowhere to be found. Hearing the neighbor's dog barking loudly, I feared the worst and went outside, only to find the children throwing things at the dog. Stop that. You shouldn't be doing that. It's cruel. But it's really fun. Look, that dog is yelping. I told you to stop. What you're doing is very wrong. As I scolded them with all my might, the children became quietly subdued. Then one of them said something I had never expected. But Mom always does the same thing. We were just copying her. I was completely exhausted. Would I really be able to take care of them properly until my son and his wife returned? My worries only grew. Then Robert returned with many clothes he had bought for the children. "Are you okay? You look pale, are you tired? I'll take care of the children, so you should rest, Hillary. But I can't just leave it all to you." The children, who had been scolded by me, had completely forgotten that and were energetically running around. Watching them, Robert sighed and said, "Is it my turn now? I think so. That will be better." Continuing like this would not only deplete our strength, but it would also be bad for the children's education. Loving our grandchildren, I agreed with Robert's suggestion that we should help them become decent human beings, so we brought the children to a church deep in the mountains. "It's been a while, Pastor. We're in your care again. Are these your grandchildren?" They do bear a resemblance to Ned. To tell the truth, when Ned was going through a rebellious phase and not attending school, we had once entrusted him to this church. The children, unaware of the harsh training awaiting them, looked around with interest. On the first day of training, despite it being past waking time, the children hardly woke up. Their internal clocks must have been disrupted by staying up late playing games all the time. A young seminarian came with a metal bell and rang it loudly over the children's heads, which was probably too noisy for them as they crawled out from under the blankets. They had never made a bed before, so I reluctantly showed them how at first. "Look, you make a bed like this. You've seen your mom do it, right?" One of the children shook his head. "I've never seen Mom make a bed." "Oh dear. So, has the blanket been left unfolded all this time?" I was dismayed, but given the attitude of my daughter-in-law, I wasn't surprised. After waking up, all the lodgers gathered in the large hall to sit in meditation. The children, unable to stay in one place, soon stood up to go play somewhere, but were quickly brought back by the young seminarians. Reluctantly, they began to imitate the adults around them and closed their eyes. Some began to doze off midway, but when I tried to wake them, the pastor stopped me. "Let the children come to realize and grow on their own." The breakfast consisted of vegetarian meals made from wild vegetables picked from the mountain, which seemed to disappoint the children. "There's no meat in this. The flavor is too bland. I want instant noodles. They don't have that here." As Robert said that, the children clicked their tongues in boredom but eventually started eating quietly. After breakfast, they had to mop the long corridor of the main hall. I taught the children how to wring out a rag first, as they had never done that before. "Hold it by here and here, then twist it tightly. Go ahead, try it." The children imitated and tried to wring out the rags, but at first, they wrung them too loosely, and the floor became soaking wet. However, after repeating the same action, the children seemed to get the hang of it and were able to mop almost as well as us. They also had to prepare their own dinner. Since there was no running water, they had to fetch water from a spring behind the church, and the children, working together, carried a full tank of water each day, sweating profusely. When they managed to carry it without spilling a single drop, the children showed smiles filled with a sense of achievement. After dinner, a sermon by the seminarian began. Tired from the unfamiliar hard labor from morning, the children initially dozed off, but after 3 days, they got used to the work and listened to the seminarian's sermon until the end. If you treat others with compassion, good things will come back to you many times over. The children listened intently to the seminarian's words. You must not cause pain or sorrow to the weak. You must not be selfish and inconvenience those around you. If those around you are happy, it will come back around, and you will be happy as well. By the end of the training, the children had remarkably stopped being selfish. Moreover, seeing me struggling with heavy bags, one of the grandchildren took the initiative and said, "Let me carry it, Grandma. You take it easy." Thus, the children's week-long church training in the mountains safely came to an end. As we descended the mountain, I noticed over 50 missed calls from Ned on my smartphone. Surely he and his wife were enjoying their trip abroad. Thinking this, I cheerfully called back, and it was Ashley who answered. What's going on there? I've been waiting and there's no payment. Ashley was ranting in a highly irritated tone over the phone. I hadn't been able to communicate because there was no cell service in the mountains, but I then remembered that before leaving for abroad, Ashley had demanded that I transfer $2,000 by Monday. Why are you so upset? Is there something troubling you? They had been insisting on money so much before departure, likely planning to enjoy their trip on our dime. It seems they were in trouble because that plan fell through. Don't joke with me. Transfer $2,000 today. Ashley maintained her commanding tone, and it made my blood boil. Is this how one should ask for favors? I have no intention of giving you even a single penny. Please enjoy your trip and don't forget to buy souvenirs for the children. You're kidding me. What you're doing is no different than theft. If you want to sue, go ahead. I don't think the police will move on such a matter, and you would be the one embarrassed. Listen, Ashley. I have no intention of supporting you any longer, and regarding the inheritance, I will make arrangements to pass it directly to the grandchildren. We're the ones looking after the children. Supporting us is also for the children. Hold on, Mom. What are you thinking? Ned, having taken the phone from Ashley, spoke in a panicked tone. This is a decision your father and I made together. We are tired of financially supporting you. From now on, you'll need to manage on your own. I spoke calmly to my flustered son. Don't be ridiculous. How can you say such cold things, you heartless monster? It seemed Ashley had taken back the phone. Once again, her condescending statements flowed. You always said how much you love the grandchildren. Supporting us is also for them. You were happy when Ned was born, right? I heard it was a difficult birth after enduring infertility treatments. And yet, to abandon your own son whom you suffered to give birth to, that's the worst kind of parenting. Remember, I'm repeating this. Supporting our family is for the sake of your adorable grandchildren. Let me speak. Robert, who had been silently listening, took over the phone. You sure talk a lot of nonsense. Are you even properly raising the children? Their clothes are tattered. You weren't even bathing them daily, were you? After being pointed out these issues, there was silence on the other end. It seemed they had no comeback to the painful truth. I took the phone back from Robert and spoke my mind to Ashley. Children grow up watching their parents. Their bodies might grow on their own, but a compassionate heart must be taught by parents. Mom, please. This isn't the time to be having this conversation. We really need the money right now. Stop depending on others forever, you're not children anymore. As I shouted over the phone, one of the grandchildren tugged at my sleeve. It's okay not to pay. With a dismayed expression and a sigh, he said that. Despite their youth, they seemed to understand something was wrong with their parents' attitude. I will always help the grandchildren if they are in trouble. But I have no intention of supporting you any longer. Remember that. With that, I unilaterally ended the call. As I gently stroked the worried-looking grandchild's head, they smiled at me sweetly. Though they were supposed to be abroad for 2 weeks, my son and his wife returned earlier than planned. Apparently, having relied on parental support, they had squandered their funds, leaving their wallets nearly empty. It seemed they hadn't even managed to buy souvenirs. Both of them looked utterly exhausted as they came to pick up the children. I should never have left the kids. Ashley started complaining the moment she opened the door. I invited the two to sit on the living room sofa. As I said on the phone, "Are you really looking after the kids? Their clothes were tattered, and you hadn't bathed them. This is clearly neglect." Faced with my statement, both were at a loss for words and fell silent. For now, I handed the children over to them, but soon after, rumors reached us. There were complaints from neighbors about the children always wearing the same clothes and having a strong odor. Sometimes, child welfare services even visited my son's apartment. Eventually, rumors of neglect reached the executives at Ned's company. In light of recent social awareness, the company called Ned in for a verbal warning before it became a public issue. Later, as we told my son and his wife, we rewrote the will, including the inheritance of properties and other assets. We decided to leave 90% to the 4 grandchildren and the remaining 10% to my son and his wife. The 4 grandchildren, perhaps due to their rigorous church training, had become remarkably more temperate. They occasionally visited our house, greeting us properly, and after meals, they took the initiative to wash the dishes. Lately, they have been helping us with the gardening while enjoying it together. Eating fresh vegetables, the grandchildren discuss everything from school happenings to their future dreams with us. Apparently, they don't trust their parents enough to consult them about anything. Grandma, Grandpa, take us to the beach for summer vacation. As the grandchildren made their request with sparkling eyes, I couldn't help but smile warmly at their innocence. Mother, your face is all red. Were you shocked to hear my husband's true feelings? You don't need a son like that anymore, do you? What? Please cut ties with me as a parent. Mom, you're not only out of money, you might end up in debt from cleaning up the factory, right? It's troublesome if you're targeted for money. And, I hate it when you're broke and in debt, yet you still ask for care. I see. I understand now. Then, I'll take everything that belongs to Dad. That's fine, right? Yeah, that's fine. Please take care of the rest. After my husband passed away, my eldest son spoke his true feelings without any reservations. Having always disliked both me and my husband, he decided I was of no use to him and demanded that we cut ties. I was almost relieved to do so. 2 years later, I found myself sitting on a bench outside the supermarket, having a simple lunch. It was there that I encountered a face I did not wish to see. Is that you, Mom? It really is. It's been a while. Are you having lunch here? And from that food truck over there? What a luxurious lunch you have. Luxurious? Don't you think a food truck bowl is a luxury item if you have no money? What kind of poor life are you leading now? Are you still working, or are you living on a pension? Can you live on just your pension? If not, can you receive welfare? Are you actually living on welfare? This is the first time I've seen someone living on welfare. How is life at the bottom of welfare? Forever scorned by my eldest son and his wife, who saw me as poor, I decided to enlighten them about my situation. I'm Kathy, 59 years old, and work at a small auto repair shop owned by my husband, Michael. Life has always been hard, but I managed and felt some happiness working with my husband. I believed Michael felt the same. However, our son, Ryan, didn't always see it that way. As a middle schooler, he became clearly rebellious. Don't come near me. You stink of oil. What are you saying to your father? He is working hard for us. Mom, don't be so mad. It's true he stinks of oil. Ryan shouted at Michael as they passed in the living room. I immediately defended my husband, which Ryan did not like. He glared at me and stomped off to his room. Michael seemed not to care, but his actions said otherwise. Teenage rebellion is inevitable, especially when we live in a not-so-clean auto repair shop and aren't wealthy. But such rebellions are usually resolved over time. The cafe nearby seems to have shut down. Really? Wasn't it just established last year? Yeah. It hasn't even been a year. Doing business is really tough. I really appreciate what my parents are doing. A cafe and an auto repair shop are different, right? Still, maintaining a business is the same. As a college student, Ryan understood the hardships of self-employment and stopped being venomous. Although Michael heard the exchanges, he pretended not to while reading the newspaper. I considered confronting him but decided against it, thinking it too mean. After graduating from college, my eldest son moved out of the house. Make sure you don't oversleep and be late for work. Don't just eat microwave food or supermarket side dishes, try to cook for yourself. Don't worry so much. I'll be fine. See you, Dad. Don't worry about it. He would only suffer by taking over such a small shop. I watched Ryan's back as he left, larger than I remembered. As he vanished, Michael and I silently confirmed our parenting was complete. After my eldest son moved out, he seldom returned home. He only came back for Christmas, and without a call from us, there wouldn't be any contact. It felt a bit lonely, but I thought that was just how boys were. I felt lucky that he still returned for Christmas and answered our calls. However, about 5 years ago, he stopped coming home altogether and even stopped answering his phone. I became very worried due to the complete lack of communication, but my husband didn't seem nearly as concerned. I wonder if he's all right. If he's managing to live well. Are you worried about Ryan again? He's fine. He would contact us if something was wrong. Michael responded without looking up from his newspaper, tired of the same conversation. Ryan was 31, an important age for work and marriage, yet no contact worried me. I reluctantly placed a cup of coffee in front of Michael with a louder thud than usual. But soon, Michael's perspective proved correct. Mom, it's been a while. I'm coming home soon. There's someone I want you to meet. Wait, what does that mean? Yeah, that's what it means. Make sure you're ready and don't embarrass us. I was thrilled by the call from Ryan after such a long silence, and even more so by the news of his marriage. Excited, I rushed to Michael. Guess what? He's getting married. Are you talking about a celebrity marriage? No. Ryan is getting married, and he's bringing his bride home. See, there was no need to worry. Michael smirked at me. Despite my annoyance, I had to admit he was right. Soon, Ryan would bring his bride home. No parent could help but feel a bit nervous. Am I okay? Do I look strange? Relax, you've changed outfits several times already. It's just a greeting, there's no need to worry so much. I can't help but worry. It's the first time meeting her, and she's going to marry Ryan, after all. Today is the day Ryan is bringing his fiancée home. I've been bustling about since the morning, but my husband is leisurely reading the newspaper and drinking coffee. I wonder what kind of person Ryan is bringing. My heart is full of hope and anxiety, but I'm more hopeful, eagerly waiting for their arrival. However, my expectations would soon be disappointed by this marriage introduction. An hour later, Ryan and his fiancée arrived at our home. We're home. I'll introduce her quickly. This is Sarah, whom I'm going to marry. Nice to meet you. I apologize for the intrusion. Nice to meet you. I'm Ryan's mother, Kathy. Come in, your father is waiting in the living room. We exchanged brief greetings at the entrance. Ryan's fiancée looked stylish and beautiful, the very image of a modern adult woman. She seemed a bit younger than Ryan. Unlike my humble days working at the auto repair shop, she radiated a sparkling aura. Then I headed to the living room where my husband was waiting. Dad, long time no see. Indeed, it feels like 100 years. You don't even call, you unfilial child. I came today to make up for those 100 years of being unfilial. Right. Both of you have a seat quickly. It had been 5 years since we last saw Ryan, but our relationship hadn't changed. As Ryan entered the living room, my husband immediately joked, looking at his face. Embarrassed by the first parent-child conversation in front of his fiancée, I glanced at her face to see her expression relaxing slightly. Relieved, I went to the kitchen to make some coffee. Sarah works at the same company as me. Oh, so you're both in office equipment sales? No, Sarah is in a different department, she's not in sales. Also, I changed jobs 3 years ago, we met at the new company. I see. You quit your previous job then? Yeah. By the way, we've moved and now live surprisingly close, about an hour away by car. While making coffee, I listened carefully to the conversation coming from the living room and checked on the three of them. The conversation mainly involved my husband and Ryan, while his fiancée seemed to be looking around the room, perhaps feeling a bit out of place. I decided to offer her a lifeline. Did you notice something that caught your eye? I placed the coffee on the table and addressed Ryan's fiancée. My question paused the conversation between my husband and Ryan, hopefully starting a discussion among all four of us. However, still a bit nervous, Ryan's fiancée misspoke. No, nothing in particular. I just heard from Ryan that you run a factory. Expected a fancier house? Sorry for disappointing you. We're not the wealthy type of business owners, but the poorer kind. Watch your words, it's embarrassing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. Don't worry, no need to rush. It's all good. My husband and I couldn't help but laugh at the words of Ryan's fiancée. Ryan, embarrassed, looked down. Neither of us was angry, in fact, her slip made the conversation easier. Seeing us laugh, Ryan's fiancée realized we were easygoing and gradually began to speak more openly. This smoothed the conversation, and we managed to bond successfully. Initially, I was intimidated by her stylish and beautiful appearance, but she turned out to be quite friendly. It seemed like we could get along well in the future. 3 months after the marriage introduction, Ryan got married successfully. They didn't live with us, so my life didn't change much, but there were small differences. I found some tasty-looking sweets online and ordered some. I arranged for them to be delivered to you as well, so please try them. You bought them again? I told you it's okay. I want someone to share opinions with. My husband just eats without saying anything. I can imagine that. He's kind of unemotional, isn't he? It seems so. He only used to come home for Christmas, right? From now on, we thought we'd visit during Easter and Christmas, if that's okay with you? Of course, I'm looking forward to it. Once Ryan got married, his wife began contacting us regularly instead of him. She even showed thoughtfulness by occasionally sending us things. This is perhaps the difference between men and women. Several months passed, and during their first Easter visit as a married couple, Ryan's wife mentioned they would come to our house. I put extra effort into preparing lunch, but this lunch inadvertently caused a small incident. Sarah, did the meal not suit your taste? No, that's not it. I'll eat now. Ryan's wife smiled as she ate the lunch I prepared, but I could sense her smile was forced. Concerned by her reaction, I kept glancing at her expression. In contrast, my husband and Ryan were having a lively conversation while eating. Eventually, Ryan's wife didn't finish her meal, leaving some behind. After lunch, as I was cleaning up the dishes alone, Ryan approached me quietly. Mom, what were you thinking? It's Sarah's first Easter visit, and you serve a bowl dish for lunch. Isn't that too rough? Oh. Really? I just wanted the younger generation to try it. I get that you're good at making bowl dishes, but you need to choose the right time and occasion. If you don't make something more elaborate or order takeout, it might seem like you're slacking. Sarah was worried you might dislike her. I didn't mean that. But yes, you're right. Sorry. I didn't intend to skimp on lunch, so there was no real need to apologize. However, even if it was a misunderstanding, I felt bad for making Ryan and his wife uncomfortable and found myself apologizing. After the bowl incident, the contacts from Ryan's wife, which used to occur every 2 or 3 months, ceased. They visited again the following Christmas, but after that, they stopped coming for Easter. I regret serving a bowl dish during their first visit. Seeing my regret, my husband kindly spoke to me. Wasn't that bowl dish one of your proud creations? It's been praised by many, so you should be more confident. The lack of contact from Sarah isn't related to the dish. They are both in their 30s and busy with work. It's probably just that they are busy. They'll contact us again eventually. Remember, it was the same when Ryan got married, right? Michael's words are all true. I felt a bit more confident because of what he said. Whenever I get panicked or anxious, he always has something to say. His words might seem careless, like I shouldn't worry or that I'm overthinking things. However, his words make me feel better. There have been times when I was annoyed by his nonchalant attitude, but looking back, his words have often been a great comfort to me. After 30 years of marriage, I've just come to realize this. Surely, I'll continue to rely on him. However, I thought this just as Michael fell ill, creating a situation where I couldn't rely on him as much. I'm sorry. It looks like I won't be able to work anymore. This is my retirement. Michael seemed pleased to be able to retire while lying in the hospital bed. However, knowing that he had recently enjoyed his work, he must feel regretful about retiring just as he started to enjoy his job. I can't tinker with cars, but I'll continue with the work I can do. That way, if your health improves and you want to come back to work, you can, right? I'm 64 years old. If I've fallen ill, there's no coming back, right? You're only 64. There are people working past 70, so it's fine. Besides, I want to keep working because I want to. Do what you want. For now, I'm retired. All right, all right. Michael responded with a firm tone, but his expression wasn't entirely serious. His words and demeanor at 60 made my motivation for work double. Despite our wishes, Michael's condition worsened. Naturally, he couldn't return to work, and a year passed in no time. There was another problem, besides his illness. We had informed Ryan about his father's illness, but throughout the year, we neither saw Ryan and his wife nor heard from them. When I told Ryan over the phone that his father had fallen ill, he said, "Dad's sick? Got it. I'll come by sometime." What does sometime mean for Ryan? 2 more years passed, and 3 years after Michael fell ill, he passed away without Ryan and Sarah ever showing their faces. He was only 67. A bit early, huh? Well, he struggled a lot when he was younger, probably shortened his lifespan. So, when should I come back? When I informed Ryan over the phone that Michael had passed away, he showed no sadness. Instead, he made incredible remarks that mocked the hard work Michael had done for the family and indicated he had no intention of helping with the funeral. I was angered by Ryan's cold response, but I didn't have the time or the emotional space to argue. After hanging up, I took a deep breath and busied myself with the necessary arrangements and cleanup to distract from my feelings. In the end, Ryan did not help with any funeral preparations, and by the time the funeral was over, he had disappeared. Calls to him went unanswered. Perhaps it's time to reconsider our relationship with Ryan and his wife. A little over a month after Michael's funeral, I had calmed down somewhat, but still no word from Ryan. Why had the attitude of Ryan and his wife, who initially had a good relationship with us, changed so drastically? As I wondered this and prayed at the family altar, I heard a familiar voice at the door. "Mom. Are you there?" It seems Ryan and his wife had come. As I headed to greet them at the entrance, I heard them barge into the house and head straight for the living room. I redirected myself from the entrance to the living room. "Ah, there you are." As I entered the living room, Ryan and his wife were sprawled out in the exact spot where Michael used to sit. I tried to keep my breathing calm as I listened to them. "What are you here for? It's about time we discussed the inheritance, right?" "Of course, we came to say we don't need anything." "What? I was surprised by Ryan's words, thinking they were after Michael's estate. Amused by my reaction, Ryan and his wife continued to smirk and talk. I know. Dad's factory was built on leased land, and when it's returned, it will cost several tens of thousands to demolish, right? A month has passed since Dad died and the factory is still untouched, which means there's no money because he was a poor businessman, right? The house is an old wreck built over 30 years ago and hardly worth anything. So, taking something that won't make any money is just a hassle, and we'll leave all the rest to you, Mom. A hassle, for that reason. Isn't that reason enough? I looked it up, and cleaning up the factory costs quite a bit, doesn't it? Mother, are you okay with money? What are you talking about? That's why we're saying to take care of everything troublesome. See, this is why I told you there's no need to keep Mom and Dad happy. Really disappointing. I had a slight hope, because you said you were running a factory. Well, the world isn't so sweet, is it? Wait. Can you explain clearly what you're saying? As Ryan and his wife rapidly continued with their incomprehensible conversation, I got irritated and raised my voice. However, they were not fazed by my shouting and began to answer my questions honestly. When we got married, we got along with you in case the factory business went well so we could get some money. Ryan had been estranged from you, so if we wanted money, we had to be on good terms, right? I said it was pointless, though. I thought there might be a chance, but it seemed there wasn't any hope right away, so we stopped bothering. We even ate that poor-smelling bowl dish and made annoying phone calls, all for nothing. You don't know how hard it is to run a factory, so thinking there's a chance isn't strange. It was really the worst. Dad reeked of oil and never took us on a trip because he made so little money. But that was because he was cutting living expenses to send Ryan to college, right? Yeah, I got to college, but that doesn't change my hate for Dad, Mom, and this house. I just played the good son because I didn't want him to get mad and not pay for college. I can't believe I endured 4 years. Well, consider it a thank you for paying the tuition and letting you experience a good parent-child relationship. My anger grew as Ryan and his wife's true feelings came to light. Had we been happy for nothing about their marriage? Does Ryan not appreciate Michael's hard work at all? My breathing became rougher as my anger became uncontrollable. Mother, your face is all red. Were you shocked to hear my husband's true feelings? You don't need a son like that anymore, do you? What? Please cut ties with me as a parent. Mom, you're not only out of money, you might end up in debt from cleaning up the factory, right? It's troublesome if you're targeted for money. And, I hate it when you're broke and in debt, yet you still ask for care. I see. I understand now. I made a list of the things Dad left behind, but do you want to check it? I don't need it, I don't need it. There's nothing of value there anyway. Then, I'll take everything that Dad left behind. That's fine, right? Yeah, that's fine. Then, please take care of everything else. Just before my anger exploded, Ryan and his wife left. When the source of my anger disappeared from my sight, I couldn't help but laugh unexpectedly. Surely, they will regret not taking anything. 2 years after my husband passed away, I turned 65. Today, I was wandering around outside to meet someone I knew from work. It's quite tough moving around at this age. I decided to take a break and sat on a bench outside the supermarket to have a simple lunch. The supermarket was bustling with various people, including families with children. I thought of someone's face from when they were that small and cute. Was it wrong to think that? I ended up encountering someone I didn't want to see. Hey, isn't that you, Mom? It really is. Long time no see. Are you having lunch here? And from that food truck over there? That's quite a luxurious meal. Luxurious? You demolished the factory, right? I passed by the other day and it was gone. You must have spent the non-existent money on demolishing it, right? You have no money and yet, a food truck bowl is a luxury item, isn't it? What do you usually eat? Beans? Bread? 2 years have passed and it seems Ryan and his wife haven't changed at all. However, I have nothing to say to Ryan and his wife anymore. Ignoring their irritating words, I walked to the food truck where I bought the bowl to dispose of the empty container. Still not satisfied with teasing me, Ryan and his wife followed me, continuing to talk as I ignored them. Hey, don't ignore us. What kind of poor life are you leading now? Are you still working, or are you living on a pension? Can you live on just your pension? If you can't live on a pension, you can receive welfare, right? Are you living on welfare? I've never seen someone living on welfare. How is life at the bottom of welfare? Exasperated, I let out a sigh. If I keep ignoring them, they seem likely to follow me forever, so I decided to enlighten Ryan and his wife with a fact I didn't necessarily need to share. It was delicious. Keep it up. Look, a poor person telling the food truck guy to keep it up, acting all high and mighty. You should be the one to keep it up. Who do you think you're talking to? Obviously you. The welfare-reliant mother. Welfare? Who's on welfare? What, you're not on welfare? Then, are you still working? What kind of job are you doing? I walked away from the food truck and led Ryan and his wife to a quieter part of the parking lot where we could speak more freely if voices were raised. The food truck where you bought that bowl is my shop. What do you mean? You're the owner of that store? Should I call myself the owner? A single food truck won't make much income, right? It's not just that store. I've managed about 300 stores so far. 300 stores? If you're going to lie, at least make it a believable lie. Right. No way that's believable. Well, look at this then. I took out my smartphone and showed Ryan and his wife a website. Mobile vending. Food truck franchise recruitment. Next, look here. See, my name is written, right? I then navigated from the home page to the company profile page and showed them the name of the representative. Could it be, 300 stores is true? Yes, it's true. You had complaints about my bowl dish, right? That was one of the prototypes when I started the food truck. What? You were already starting the food truck back then? Why didn't you tell us? Starting a food truck near 60, it was too trendy to mention, and embarrassing if I failed, right? So, I planned to tell you once it was making a bit of income. But since we hardly communicated and you spoke poorly of Dad, I lost the desire to tell you. 300 franchise contracts mean substantial royalties. Yes. It's less than when Dad was alive, but it might still be more than both of your salaries. Dad? What does he have to do with it? The food trucks rely on what Dad built according to the franchise owner's requests. As the number of contracts increased, Dad's work increased too. Since Dad passed away, I've been relying on a car shop acquaintance, so the income has dropped somewhat. 300 stores, that's a lot of money. Ryan's wife seemed to be calculating the large number in her head. However, the number 300 was a bit of an exaggeration to make things look good. The 300 stores were the total number contracted so far. Some contracts had been terminated, so the current number was less than 100, but I hadn't lied since I originally said I managed 300 stores, not that I currently have 300 contracts. They misunderstood it as currently having 300 contracts. I could correct the misunderstanding, but I felt better letting it stand. So, you've really grown to 300 stores, huh? I never imagined the business would grow this large at the beginning. In fact, I stopped running my own food truck after about a year. Using the connections I made as a business owner, I was able to secure various locations for vending and participate in events, which went quite well. But operating a food truck really requires physical stamina, and starting at 60 was tough. You quit the food truck, then why franchise? When I was quitting, a regular young girl said she wanted to take over. That sparked the idea of franchising. By the way, that girl was the one in front of the supermarket entrance. She's a hard worker. As her reputation grew, young people came to me wanting to do the same. I wanted to support these young people, so I allowed them to choose their shop names and lowered the royalties, which helped it spread even more. Then I made it possible to recruit nationwide on the website, and it ended up expanding to 300 stores. I see. If it's that big, then demolishing the factory should be easy. Why didn't you demolish it for a month? I just put it off because I was too busy with work. Now that Ryan and his wife understood that I had managed franchises for 300 stores over 5 years, they clearly began to choose their words more carefully. From here, I could guess what Ryan and his wife might say next. So, when Dad's inheritance was settled, you were already 3 years into the food truck business, right? You must have been making some money by then, right? So we should get something, shouldn't we? I made it clear that I would take everything, remember? I even prepared the inheritance documents, but you didn't check them, did you? Why should I have to give you money now? Ryan was silenced by my argument. If he had glanced at the inheritance documents I prepared even for a second, none of this would have happened, so his frustration was understandable. However, at this point, his wife realized something and, forgetting I was in front of her, spoke to Ryan. Wait a minute. Kathy is in her mid-60s. Even if we've cut ties, eventually, the money she makes will end up going to Ryan, won't it? That's true. When you think about it, the more she works, the more I stand to gain. Maybe if we take over the company, we could get all the royalties. The two of them were excited, thinking that my earnings would eventually flow to them. It's unfortunate for them to be happy about such thoughts, as I have no intention of letting that happen. Sorry, but I don't plan to leave anything for you. What? I'm getting older, and work is becoming difficult. I'm not taking on new contracts anymore, just supporting the current ones. So, the number of contracts will only decrease, not increase. But the ones that are doing well will continue to operate, right? I'm planning to eventually dismantle the franchise headquarters and have everyone operate independently. Why? It's normal to pass the management to your child, like me, rather than to strangers. Well, many of our contract partners are young people. When I see their efforts, they feel like my own sons and daughters. I'd rather do something for these new children, who I've seen more often than you, who hasn't shown your face since your father fell ill. Upon hearing that I intended to dismantle the franchise headquarters, Ryan collapsed to his knees. His wife tried to console him wrongly. It's okay. The money your mother made will still come to us. How much can a person underestimate others? I certainly don't want to leave anything to such people. Unfortunately, I plan to spend all the money. What? I'm thinking of moving to a high-rise condo for the elderly. It has a full-time care staff, and they provide 24/7 support. It's expensive, but I have my savings and the royalties that come in every month. Plus, I want to travel while I can still walk, and I plan to buy whatever I want without holding back. Looks like my retirement is going to be busy. My declaration of spending caused Ryan's wife to collapse too. How I spend my money is none of Ryan and his wife's business since we've already cut ties. After living as a poor business owner, I want to enjoy some luxury in my old age. Above all, I've decided to spend all the money I've earned. No one can stop my extravagant retirement life now. Well, I just came to see honest, hardworking kids at work, so I'm heading back now. I left Ryan and his wife, who were squatting on the ground unable to move, and walked away from the supermarket without entering the store. Hearing about my success with food trucks, Ryan and his wife must have thought running a food business was easy. They quit their jobs, used their savings, and opened a cafe with additional borrowed money. Naturally, the food and beverage industry isn't that sweet. In my case, it only grew because young franchisees were dedicated. While I initially helped with locations and events, I learned more from the franchisees as time went on. Though Ryan's cafe initially attracted customers, it didn't last. A shop without quality will not keep customers, and within a year, it closed. Hadn't he seen cafes close within a year when he was in college? Had he learned nothing from that? After closing the cafe, the couple had used up their savings and, with no revenue, ended up in debt due to loans and the cost of dismantling the shop interior. Now that they had first-hand experience of how tough it is to earn a daily living through their own business, they shouldn't be able to mock my husband's work anymore. As planned, I moved to the high-rise condo and began reducing my workload. Today, I'm going to check out an event where a child from a nearby area who is working hard has set up a booth. I was really looking forward to when you would bring up divorce, you know. Seriously, being poor without parents is just no good. With a mocking smile, Dorothy said this in a sharp voice. I had been tormented by Dorothy, my mother-in-law, since the beginning of my marriage. She would barge into the house where my husband and I lived without asking. Wait for me to come home from work, and endlessly complain while watching me do housework. The way I cleaned, how I folded the laundry, the seasoning of the food. She would meddle in everything, but Dorothy never offered to help. One day, after enduring so much, I finally reached my limit. You were raised in a fatherless home. So you never really learned how to cook properly, did you? Your taste buds are so messed up, your food isn't even good. Dorothy, who had been sampling the food without permission, hurled such abuse. I had been raised by my grandfather since I was a child, as my parents were not around. I couldn't forgive her for mocking my grandfather, knowing this. In a fit of anger, I brought up divorce, and both Dorothy and Howard readily agreed. Dorothy, spewing things with a tone of satisfaction, was joined by Howard saying, "That's right." The difference in family status was just too great. Next time, we'll find someone with a family as good as ours. But the two of them didn't know. The time when they could laugh was only temporary. In the not-too-distant future, they would learn the truth and collapse in despair. My name is Lucy Thompson, a 33-year-old part-time housewife. 2 years ago, I married Howard, a senior colleague at work. He had been teaching me various things since I joined the company. If you don't understand something, feel free to ask me anything, he said with a kind smile, completely capturing my heart. I, who had little experience in love, couldn't actively approach him. Asking work-related questions was all I could manage. Even thinking about asking personal questions or inviting him out for a meal after work made my face hot. However, Howard eventually asked me out. I was attracted to your hardworking and sincere demeanor. Would you like to date me? I nodded without hesitation to his words. After dating for several years, we got married and started living together. In my heart, there was the joy of being able to be with the person I loved forever, as well as the relief of finally being able to reassure my grandfather. I had lost my parents when I was young, and my grandfather, Frank Irving, had taken me in and raised me. Why don't I have parents? During my rebellious phase, I would scream in a shrill voice at my grandfather, although I knew it wasn't his fault. Now that I'm an adult, such things are behind me, and we have a good relationship. The sad look on my grandfather's face at that time still haunts me. I felt guilty for causing him trouble and wanted to repay him somehow. I decided to be as filial as possible. I gave him presents with my first salary, took him on trips for his birthday, and brought him to nice restaurants. By marrying Howard and building a family, I thought I had finally truly reassured him. Lucy, be happy. At the wedding, my grandfather said this through tears, and I cried too. Initially, Howard and I were busy with work. But we had recently settled down and started thinking about having children. Of course, I wanted children, but the pressure from my mother-in-law, Dorothy, was also a factor that made me think seriously about it. Lucy, you've been married for 2 years now, haven't you? Don't you want to give me a grandchild soon? I couldn't count how many times she had said something like that. Yes, eventually. I would vaguely smile and divert the topic. But being confronted every time we met was quite stressful. Even when I looked to Howard for help, whether he noticed or pretended not to see, he said nothing. Tired of enduring the pressure to have grandchildren, I reduced my visits to my in-laws' home. But it was in vain. Dorothy started barging into the house where Howard and I lived. "Huh, Mother. Why are you here?" When I first witnessed this, I exclaimed in surprise, but Dorothy remained calm and said, "Howard gave me a spare key. We're family, so there's no problem coming in, right?" What initially happened only on weekends now occurred even on weekdays, mercilessly. About 3 to 4 days a week, I was greeted by Dorothy in the living room as I came home. I had gotten used to it, or rather, since she wouldn't stop no matter how many times I said it, I was resigned to saying, "I'm home," as a habit. And if you wondered whether Dorothy did any housework before we returned, the answer is no. On the contrary, she would say, "Hurry up and prepare dinner. I've been waiting and am starving," while I was still putting away my things and starting to cook. Outwardly, I would obediently respond, but inside, I deeply sighed. I had argued back before, but that would only lead to a long lecture. Well, even if I didn't say anything back, Dorothy would still give unsolicited advice, or rather lectures, about housework. When I returned home late due to overtime and tried to heat up some leftovers, Dorothy would say, "Leftovers? Are you cutting corners? Food should be freshly cooked. Surely you're not letting Howard eat such terrible meals." Dorothy would criticize without lifting a finger to help, so I was utterly fed up with her. Even if I showed a hint of dissatisfaction, she would scream, "What, do you have a problem with what I'm saying? I'm giving you advice as someone with more life experience." As these incidents continued, I grew more adept at ignoring Dorothy's nagging. But there was something I couldn't forgive. While waiting for us to return, Dorothy would use the water and electricity without any consideration. Once, she left the TV on while taking a nap during the day. Thanks to, or rather because of, her actions, our utility bills were skyrocketing. Tired of her behavior, I consulted Howard several times, asking him to talk to his mother and request the return of the spare key, but he wouldn't listen. "Oh, don't say things like that," he would chide me with a smile. From his perspective, Dorothy's actions were her way of trying to get along with me. "Don't be so tense, I want us to get along," Howard would say, apparently out of goodwill, so I couldn't speak up strongly. But Dorothy's remarks kept escalating for the worse. "Really, Lucy, you're so clumsy. Maybe it's because you're from a single-parent family that things don't work out?" She would start saying things that belittled my grandfather, my guardian. And I had reached my limit. Apparently, Dorothy thought raising children as a couple was superior to being a single parent. Then, one day, I received a surprising message. Today, your mother-in-law visited unexpectedly. The person who contacted me was a woman named Olivia, the secretary at my grandfather's company. I couldn't see her face over the phone, but I could easily tell from her tone of voice that she was making a bitter expression. What? Why would she do that? Could it be that she went to tell my grandfather the same kind of insults she usually says to me? I imagined Dorothy, with a sneering smile, spewing out words like, "Lucy is really incompetent, isn't she? You were like a parent to her, right? What kind of education did you give her?" However, contrary to my expectation, it seems she only came because the president had once said, "Please visit whenever you are nearby." She just came, ate her fill of tea snacks, and left. Apparently, Dorothy took my grandfather's polite invitation literally. "I had delicious sweets at your grandfather's company. It's so kind of him to say. Feel free to visit if you're nearby." Dorothy, who was usually waiting at our house, happily reported this to me as soon as I opened the front door. Although it's possible that my grandfather said that, can't Dorothy read between the lines? Even if she really did want to visit, isn't it common sense to contact him beforehand? I could only let out a dry laugh, dumbfounded. My response must have displeased her, as Dorothy's expression suddenly changed, furrowing her brow. And as usual, she began to make sarcastic remarks to me. "By the way, when are you going to manage to come home earlier? If you were more capable, you should be able to finish quickly and come home, right?" My lips twitched. I was used to hearing insults from Dorothy, but that didn't mean they didn't hurt. I tried not to take them too seriously, but I hadn't reached the point where I could just smile and ignore them. "If you don't come home early, Howard will always have to eat the unappetizing leftovers, won't he? Really, you lack the spirit to support your husband." "I'm sorry, I've been busy with work." How I wished I could say, "Then why don't you cook, Mother?" Instead, as I spoke, hiding my true feelings, Dorothy's eyes narrowed sharply. "Don't make excuses. The poor have no leisure" fits this situation perfectly. You're in this mess because you were raised by a single parent and don't have money. I couldn't hide my bewilderment at her words. I opened my mouth to retort, but all that came out were meaningless words like, "Well, you're just like that guardian grandfather of yours, aren't you? He was kind, sure, but his company is old and small. He probably hasn't achieved much in terms of performance. Your grandfather's clothes were always so shabby too. I wonder if he even has money to buy clothes." Being criticized alongside my grandfather was just too hard to take. Unable to endure it any longer, I raised my voice. "Please stop speaking ill of my grandfather. What do you know about him, Mother?" This seemed to irritate Dorothy, as her face clearly showed her anger. "Oh. A daughter-in-law talking back to her mother-in-law, how rude. Apologize right now, say I'm sorry for being impudent." I stood my ground and glared back at Dorothy. It was absolutely wrong for me to apologize after she insulted my dear grandfather. The one lacking common sense wasn't me, but Dorothy. "What's with that look? It really irritates me." Dorothy yelled at me. She is shorter than me, but she seemed much bigger due to her intimidating presence. "You're just upset because I hit the nail on the head, aren't you? Don't you feel ashamed that your grandfather still has to work hard at his age?" That's not true at all. I am proud of my grandfather. But even when I expressed this, Dorothy just snorted dismissively and did not apologize to my grandfather. Oh, maybe it's not your grandfather who should feel ashamed, but you? Isn't it embarrassing that he has to work at his age because you're so poor? Worn out by Dorothy's baseless accusations, I lost the energy to argue back. I let out a loud sigh so she could hear and said, "Enough," before returning to my room. From that day on, Dorothy's treatment of me grew even harsher. And her frequency of invading our home also increased. "Look, this isn't done right. Do it over immediately." Whenever my way of doing household chores displeased her, she would immediately scream at me. It started with complaints about dust left in the corners of the room or sloppy folding of laundry. And she even demanded I change the arrangement of the furniture because she didn't like it. Whenever I opened my mouth to say something, she would cut me off with a loud lecture. As this continued, I realized that if I didn't say anything, the lecture would end in about 15 minutes. It was a sad lesson to learn. As a result, whenever I heard Dorothy's angry voice, I would clench my jaw and endure silently. The lectures always happened when Howard was not around. Your mother came to the house again on her own. She even gave a lecture, "What should I do?" Although I told him this, he would never take my side against his mother. If I just endured, everything would end without incident. I understood this logically, but I couldn't accept it emotionally. And I found myself crying in secret in the bathroom late at night. Finally, my stress reached its limit, and the day came when my patience snapped. I lost count. It might have been the 100th or even more dinner with Dorothy and Howard. Of course, I hadn't invited Dorothy, she just imposed herself in our home. As I was setting the dinner table, Dorothy reached out and snatched food from a plate before we even said, "Let's eat." I frowned, but thinking that if Dorothy noticed my changed expression, a tedious lecture would start. I quickly shook my head to dismiss it. After chewing a few times, Dorothy swallowed and burst out, "What is this food? It's really awful. Make it again. You were raised in a fatherless home and weren't taught to cook properly by a man. Your taste is so messed up, the food isn't tasty at all." With a crude laugh, she spewed her insults. The moment I heard that, something snapped inside my head. So this is what it means for one's patience to snap, I realized firsthand. Indeed, my grandfather raised me. So what? Gender doesn't matter. My grandfather raised me with love. Please stop mocking my important family, I shouted, and even after that, my anger didn't subside. And I was panting as if I had been exercising for a while. Dorothy and Howard looked surprised at first, but their expressions quickly changed to mocking smiles. Seeing that, I was shocked that none of my feelings had gotten through to them. "Let's get a divorce. I can't stay with people who endlessly mock others like you do." "Ah, I understand." When I proposed divorce, they agreed surprisingly easily. In fact, they seemed pleased, as if they had been waiting for me to say it. I was really looking forward to when you would bring up divorce. Seriously, being poor without parents is just no good. I was worried about your poverty rubbing off on us, so it's great you brought it up. That's right. The difference in family status was just too great. Next time, we'll find someone with a family as good as ours. Dorothy was as usual. But Howard seemed like a completely different person than before we married. Where had the kind man who had gently guided me when I didn't understand something gone? No, perhaps this was his true nature. Well, now that it's settled, hurry up and leave, you broke loser. While enduring endless insults, I packed my things and asked my grandfather to pick me up. I bit my lower lip hard and made sure not to talk back anymore. Nothing would resonate with those two heartless people. Upon receiving a message from my grandfather that he had arrived, I left without saying thank you or goodbye. I just put on my shoes and opened the front door. There stood my grandfather, looking worried. Spotting him, Dorothy deepened her grin and jeered. "Oh dear, isn't it nice of your grandfather to come pick you up? You must be starting early again tomorrow for work, right? Poor people just don't get a break, huh?" Olivia, the secretary who had come with my grandfather, had a vein pop on her forehead upon hearing this. Without anyone noticing, she had prepared the divorce papers and pulled them out of her bag to present to Howard. "You had it prepared already? How kind of you." "That's right. It saves us the trouble, doesn't it?" While laughing with Dorothy, Howard immediately signed the divorce papers. The expressions on my face, my grandfather's, and Olivia's were completely different from theirs. We were all dead serious, emotion wiped from our faces. "I'll file the divorce papers myself." "Sure, take care of it, will you? Then hurry up and go. I'm happy that our child won't have any poverty in their bloodline." It seemed she couldn't be satisfied without a final jab. Even though I glared at her with all my might, Dorothy was unfazed. "Well, I'll go ahead with the president to bring the car around." Saying that, my grandfather and Olivia left. Then, for some reason, Howard and Dorothy also came down to the entrance of the apartment building. "I just thought we should properly say goodbye since you took care of us." Dorothy said this, but her true intention to mock us was transparent. I kept quiet since it was useless to say anything. But I couldn't stand them making a mockery of my grandfather. I was about to turn around and unleash a torrent of complaints, but Olivia stopped me. She was, for some reason, beaming with a wide smile. "I'm going to get the car, so hold back for now." She told me that and then went to the parking lot. Misunderstanding my inability to endure being laughed at as fleeing, Dorothy and Howard continued to laugh joyously. Then a luxury car arrived, and my grandfather got out. Seeing this, their eyes widened and they approached as if drawn by a magnet. "Wow, that car is pretty expensive, isn't it? No way that poor man bought it himself. He must have rented it to show off." It seemed they wouldn't be satisfied until they had ridiculed us completely. I got into the car and exchanged a knowing grin with my grandfather. Seeing us, Olivia crossed her arms and murmured meaningfully, "The real show starts now." The next day, while I was visiting my grandfather's company for some errands, I noticed the lobby becoming noisy. I was standing a bit away, but since the lobby echoed well, I could hear the noise. "Bring out the president now. We know he's here." Hearing these shouts, I placed a hand on my forehead. Peeking from behind a column, I saw Dorothy and Howard causing a scene. Security guards were restraining them as they flailed and yelled, "Let go." The other employees watched from a safe distance, careful not to get involved. What were they doing here? Perhaps they were so upset about the luxury car the day before that they came to check if my grandfather really owned it. Bored, perhaps? While feeling dismayed, I approached them and asked, "What are you doing here?" My voice, devoid of any warmth or emotion, sounded detached. They turned to me and yelled, "Call the president. It's your grandfather we're talking about." I couldn't help but laugh at my misinformed in-laws, which annoyed them, causing their eyebrows to twitch. My grandfather isn't here. His actual workplace is the building next door. Next door? What do you mean? In fact, the place we were in was rarely used by anyone. The president's office was located in a rare high-rise building next door. Both this building and the one next door are owned by my company. My grandfather spoke with a voice as if crawling from the depths of hell, revealing himself in the lobby. My usually calm grandfather wore an expression I had seldom seen before, his eyebrows and eyes lifted in a demonic glare. As my grandfather approached them with large strides and looked down at them sternly, Dorothy and Howard could only open and close their mouths like fish begging for food, despite their previous arrogance in belittling others. My grandfather, still unbent and tall, loomed over them with considerable presence. Dorothy and Howard were completely overwhelmed, and all they could manage was to let out a weak, hoarse noise as they exhaled. I never expected to be looked down upon just based on the appearance of the company I work for. What kind of thought process is that? No, I mean, we weren't looking down on you or anything. Dorothy desperately tried to make excuses, but her far-fetched explanations almost made me burst out laughing. If that wasn't condescending, I'd love to know what is. The scenes of Dorothy and Howard hurling abuse at me and my grandfather were clearly etched in our minds. From the beginning, when you visited the company unannounced, I felt something was off. It's ironic to be told I lack common sense by someone without any. As my grandfather confronted Dorothy, Howard began to inch backwards. But the security guards behind him didn't miss a beat, blocking his escape and glaring at him. My grandfather sighed once before continuing. Originally, I lived a bit farther away. But when I could no longer endure my stress due to their taunting, I made preparations to set up a new company nearby to have a small measure of revenge. That's impossible. Dorothy finally managed to speak up, her voice loud. Her lips were pale and trembling, not unlike someone who just got out of a cold pool. Just a few months ago, your company was old and falling apart. There's no way you could prepare a new office in such a short time. You must be embarrassed by being ridiculed by us, so please don't exaggerate. To that, my grandfather replied calmly. That rundown company you're talking about was the first workplace. My real grandfather started from scratch when he founded his business. I kept it because it had sentimental value. The emphasis on rundown was quite strong. Although my grandfather didn't think so himself, irritation and sadness from being belittled by Dorothy were probably infused in his tone. Huh, your real grandfather? What do you mean? I don't understand. Dorothy collapsed weakly onto the floor, literally clutching her head in confusion, and mumbled to herself while looking back and forth between me and my grandfather. Pretending not to notice her gaze, I suggested to my grandfather. It seems she still can't believe it. Why don't you show her the building next door? My grandfather chuckled and agreed, indeed. Then pointed towards the entrance of the building. Would you like a tour if it's okay with you? His face, previously angry, had changed back to the gentle smile he usually showed me. The intimidation gone, Dorothy and Howard visibly relaxed, their faces shifting from frightened to smirking. However, cold sweat was still evident on their foreheads, showing that they were not completely at ease. Ah, yes, well, why don't you show us around? It seems they can't be satisfied without looking down on me or my grandfather. It's just the exterior that's nice, the inside must be as rundown as this place, Howard whispered to Dorothy, laughing, apparently still not realizing that my grandfather was displeased with being called rundown. Whether he was unaware of his own volume or not, we could hear everything clearly. However, Dorothy and Howard, who had been displaying such confidence, lost their words as they entered the new company. The corridor bustling with many employees. The sophisticated design of the interior, they were so stunned that their jaws might as well have dropped. What is this? To think that he's running such a large company. Don't joke with us, are you mocking us? After standing rigid for a while, they seemed to snap back to reality, scratching their heads and beginning to go mad. Who was it that ridiculed us first? As they declared this, they stopped in their tracks and collapsed together. Then were dragged out by the security guards. After that, we received no further contact from them. Rumor has it that after ridiculing my well-known grandfather in the industry, Howard was being given cold stares at his company. He was feeling so sidelined that he was thinking of resigning from his job. He had mentioned marrying someone of similar social status after our breakup. But now it seems like that's not possible for him. My grandfather has further expanded the company and handed over the presidency to me. And now he is enjoying his retirement. Determined not to be outdone by his greatness, I vowed to work even harder.
I had a blast with your secret stash of $20,000. Recently, after a 7-day overseas trip, my mother-in-law called me triumphantly upon her return. Secret stash? $20,000. What is she talking about? I have no recollection of such an amount. As a freelancer, I do have some savings for emergencies. But they are just sitting in my bank account, and I don't keep such large sums at hand. My bank card is right here. Besides, it's impossible for someone else to withdraw such a large sum without me at the bank. Since you wouldn't give it to me, I took it from the drawer in the sideboard, but you guys are rich, so it's fine, right? Huh? I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm glad you enjoyed your trip. Thank you. When I need money again, I will count on you. After saying that, she hung up. $20,000. What money is she talking about? The question was answered when my husband, Kevin, came home. I found out where that money came from. A month later, calls from my mother-in-law kept coming. I completely ignored her, but when I checked, there were over 80 missed calls. Oh well, that was just desserts, wasn't it? Thinking this, I was looking at my phone screen when my mother-in-law called again. I intended to keep ignoring her, but she was so persistent that I finally answered. Hey, what do you think you're doing? As if she hadn't brought it upon herself. Her shrill voice echoed through the room via the phone speaker. My name is Alyssa. I'm a 32-year-old freelance jewelry designer. I want children, but I'm too busy with work to take care of them. My husband, Kevin, is also 32. He used to work at a company, but now he helps manage my business. When we got married, I wasn't getting much work as a designer, and we were quite reliant on his salary. However, as I approached 30, work became stable, and I needed someone to manage my schedule. It seems tough. Isn't there anything I can do to help? Despite holding a promising position in his company, Kevin bravely resigned to become my business partner. Thanks to his management, we now even deal with famous international brands. However, we do have a problem. It's Kevin's mother, who lives alone in his family home. She believes we live a luxurious life and constantly asks us for money. You always live so lavishly, I'm so jealous. As a jewelry designer, I am often invited to launch parties and dinners with executives, which are part of my business activities. However, my mother-in-law only sees these as leisure for us and demands the same lifestyle for herself. I want to throw a party for my friends, so give me some money. Of course, I can't afford to give her money every time she asks. It might look glamorous, but it costs a lot, and I can't decline these business engagements. We are not living in luxury. This is all for work. Dressed up nicely, eating delicious food in fancy places. I'm so jealous. She said it with a sneer. It seems she will never understand. Despite my refusals, Kevin occasionally gives her money because she's his mother. If giving her a little money keeps her quiet, then it's a small price to pay. Kevin thinks it's easier to give her some money to keep her quiet than to have her disturb our work, but her demands only escalated. We were both extremely frustrated. I want a dress to wear when I go to the next tea party. She had recently come to our house to beg Kevin. A dress? Can't you wear a two-piece suit instead? Formal dresses are expensive, unlike normal clothes. Although there sure are reasonable dresses, it's unlikely she was asking for something cheap. Everyone will be wearing formal dress at the tea party. It would be shameful if I wore normal clothes. She made a fuss. I think it doesn't matter whether it's formal or normal as long as it's appropriate. Oh, and speaking of dress, I need matching shoes. All right, I'm counting on you. With that, she left. My husband had made her a credit card in her name because she frequently asked for money and told her to use that for payments. Initially, she overspent and Kevin had to warn her often, but there was no sign of improvement. At least she started to inform us before making big purchases, but she still kept up her old habits. Once, she came saying, "I found a beautiful ring and bought it. Sorry for the after-the-fact approval." Once, we had a bill with an unbelievable amount of money. "If you're going to spend like this, can you return the card? I can't keep up with the payments." The card was in her name, but Kevin managed the payments after seeing the bills. My mother-in-law seems to think that she can buy endlessly with it. A credit card is not a magic money tree. What's spent must be paid for. Since it was not her wallet being emptied, she continued to max out the card. So, Kevin had to set a limit on her card's spending capacity. Hey, when I tried to shop the other day, I couldn't make the payment. Why is that? My mother-in-law stormed in suddenly. "You've been spending too much, so I had to lower your monthly limit. That's still more than enough, right? Even though you dress up nicely and go to fancy places, what's wrong with me doing the same?" Mother, all of that is part of our work. If that's considered work, then what I'm doing isn't any different, is it? It's unfair that only you two get to enjoy yourselves. Our attendance at new product launches and parties often occurs in luxury hotels and restaurants because it's part of our work. However, to my mother-in-law, it seems like we're just dressing up and having fun. Since we put a limit on the credit amount, she seemed to have calmed down a bit. Occasionally, she came to our house and grumbled at Kevin, but for a while, there weren't any major issues as time passed. As the end of the year approached, there was a change in my work. An international brand manufacturer suggested that we move our business base abroad to increase our dealings. I was thrilled. If successful, this could put me among the top tire designers. Kevin, as my manager, also said, "Isn't this a chance? We have to take it." Right? Such opportunities are rare. Then I'm worried about my mother. She might even say she wants to come with us. Given my mother-in-law's past behavior, that was a definite possibility. "Oh, that sounds lovely. Living abroad. I want to go with you." When we told her that weekend during her visit, she indeed said something like that. "We're going there for work. There's no way we can lead a leisurely life." Even though Kevin said that, she wouldn't back down. "You're just trying to deceive me. You plan to live even more luxuriously when I'm not watching. We're not planning to stay there forever. Once our work abroad settles down, we'll come back." "You say that? You plan to leave me behind, don't you?" We were both tired of going around in circles with her. "Okay, I can't take you with us, but instead, how about I give you some travel money to go on a trip for about a week?" Exhausted from trying to convince her, Kevin made the offer. "Really? Is that okay? I'll cover your flight and hotel expenses, but you'll have to manage the rest yourself." "Yay? Thank you." She left happily. However, the relief was short-lived. A few days later, while Kevin was away adjusting details for our move abroad, my mother-in-law visited our house. "Hey, Alyssa," Kevin said that, "but I'd still like to do some shopping over there. Can I have some money? Isn't the card Kevin gave you good enough?" I thought she had a card that Kevin had given her, so I asked her about it. "Well, Kevin finally took it away because I spent too much." It seems she had it taken away after Kevin pointed out her excessive spending during her last visit. Perhaps he was worried she'd overspend without realizing it due to different rates abroad. But I didn't have such money on hand either. "I can't give you money that Kevin hasn't approved. Could you talk to him?" "Talking to him won't do any good. That's why I'm asking you." She raised her voice and then left. Afterward, during the New Year's holidays, my mother-in-law went on a 7-day trip abroad. I assumed Kevin must have sorted out the money issue. However, upon her return, she revealed a shocking fact. On the day of her return, I received a call on my smartphone. "I just got back. I had so much fun." Over the phone, without waiting for my reaction, she began excitedly talking about her sightseeing and meals at restaurants. "And I bought too many souvenirs. They wouldn't fit in my trunk, so I had to ship them from there. I can't wait for them to arrive." "That's nice to hear." I responded with a feeling of resignation as she continued to talk. Thanks to your secret stash, I had a great time. Thank you. Secret stash? What are you talking about? I had no memory of such money. While I do save some for when operating funds fall short, it's all in my bank account, and there's no way my mother-in-law could have withdrawn cash from my account without me knowing. Are you really not aware? You're surprisingly oblivious. Even if she said so, I had no recollection. When I searched the sideboard drawer at your house, there it was, $20,000. $20,000. What money? Why was such money there? It was unthinkable for us to keep cash at home, especially not such a large amount in a drawer. Confused, I said, I don't know what money you're talking about, but if you took it from our house without permission, that's theft, even if you are family. Do you understand? That's why I'm telling you now. I've already spent it. It turned into a post facto report. Unapologetically, she said it plainly. I have no idea about the origin of that money, but silently using it is a crime, and if it was meant for an important transaction that Kevin was preparing, it could be a serious issue. Even though I said this, I was thinking about how there had been no disruptions in our business-related payments or transactions while she was away. You two live a lavish life, so what's wrong with me getting a little something too? Think of it as a way of showing parental gratitude. It's not a big deal, right? What a selfish thing to say. This is not the behavior of someone who should be taking money without permission, even if it's from her son and daughter-in-law. I'm glad to hear you enjoyed your trip. As for the money, I'll ask Kevin when he gets back. I answered, still unclear about the whole situation. Being an only son, Kevin will surely overlook the use of just $20,000. Understood. I'll pass on the message. I was astonished at how oblivious my mother-in-law was. Please make sure to tell him. Thanks again. That's what she said before hanging up. But still, $20,000 in cash at home. What money could it be? Alyssa, do you know about the money I put in the drawer? That night, my husband returned home and asked me with a serious expression. I withdrew it from my account 10 days ago, and now it's gone. It was you? You put that much cash in the drawer. Didn't you think that was careless? I needed it in cash right away. It was urgent and had to be deposited. Do you know anything about it? Don't tell me you. He looked at me suspiciously. No, it's not me. Your mother called today saying, thanks for the $20,000. I had a great time with it. I had no idea what she was talking about. What? My mom? So it was Kevin's money after all. Still, I wondered where he had intended to deposit such a large amount. Hey, if it was a payment to a client, we usually handle that through bank transfers, right? Why cash? I knew it was Kevin's money, but I still didn't understand why. Right? So she took it without telling us. Well, she brought this on herself. What do you mean? I still didn't understand and asked him to explain. Well, Kevin began to explain why he had kept such a large sum of money at home. Since we limited the credit card limits and restricted cash withdrawals, my mother-in-law had been secretly borrowing money from various sources. That included payments on consumer credit cards and the ones she had secretly made. Learning this, Kevin had taken all her cards away and prepared cash to cover her ballooning debts. Even if I told her to pay it back in cash, given her character, she would end up spending it herself, right? That's why I was planning to pay directly to the financial institutions. Direct bank transfers would leave records in our accounts. Kevin was concerned about maintaining trust with our clients and managing our books without leaving too much trace. So, he decided to convert it to cash and make the payments individually. The reason he offered to pay for her overseas trip was because we were moving abroad and wouldn't be able to look after her as before, so it was sort of a severance payment. So that was the situation. What will become of my mother-in-law now? Demands for repayment and collection letters will probably start arriving soon. But since she spent it herself, it can't be helped, Kevin remarked indifferently. A month later, while I was busy packing for our move, my phone kept ringing with calls from my mother-in-law. Kevin had told me not to worry about it, so I ignored it. But the sheer number of calls was overwhelming. I counted, and there were as many as 80 missed calls, almost every day. That really made me curious. While I was contemplating what to do, the ringtone sounded again. It was my mother-in-law. As I hesitated, the call ended. Feeling slightly relieved, the phone rang again. I unintentionally answered. "You've been calling so many times. Why aren't you answering?" Her voice sounded almost like she was crying. "I'm sorry. I've been busy with the move. What's wrong?" I tried to calm myself and listen to what she had to say. "It's not about what's wrong. They ask for money almost every day. It's overwhelming." "What about Kevin? You contacted him, right?" "It seems like he's blocking my calls. I can't reach him at all. Alyssa, you're my only hope. Please help." I was surprised that Kevin had taken such a drastic step against his own mother. If only he had made the payments with the money he had set aside, this wouldn't have happened. Collection notices and demands for repayment from consumer finance companies were piling up at my mother-in-law's, causing a terrible situation. Someone was constantly watching her house, and she could hardly go out. There were terrible notices stuck to her door. I had never witnessed such a scene before. I thought such things only happened in dramas. "Alyssa, I'll mention it to Kevin, but I don't know what he'll say. Your own mother is in trouble. Helping me should be a son's role, right? Please ask him to." All I could do was to sigh. The call ended there. We needed funds for our business expansion abroad, and we didn't have the resources to assist my mother-in-law further. Moreover, she had spent the money Kevin had prepared to cover her debts, so this was indeed her own doing. Did she call? Just ignore it. When I informed my exhausted husband about the situation upon his return home, he responded dismissively. "I was planning to sort things out before we leave the States, but since she wasted it all herself, there's nothing I can do now." That's true. The money was originally prepared by Kevin to settle his mother's debts. Since she used it for a lavish trip instead, there's no excuse for her behavior. The calls from my mother-in-law continued, but like Kevin, I set her number to be blocked on my phone. While I want to help since she is Kevin's mother, if Kevin himself has decided to ignore her, there's little I can do. As we prepared to leave the States, the day of our departure was drawing closer. I need to finish packing soon, I thought, looking around the room that was still cluttered. Eventually, it appears that my mother-in-law sold her house to pay off her debts. Besides the $20,000 Kevin tried to cover, it turned out there were more hidden debts. Even after selling the land and house, she couldn't pay off the total amount, which was unimaginable. Hey, your childhood home. It's gone now. Are you okay with that? How could I be okay? But there's nothing I can do. Kevin looked somewhat sad. The sense of loss from seeing the home he grew up in disappear must be significant. Having lost my parents early, I understand the loneliness of losing a place to return to. However, unlike me, Kevin lost his place to return to because of his living mother's actions. I can't even imagine how that feels. Now, my mother-in-law lives in a cheap apartment, struggling to pay off the remaining debt by working part-time. At over 60, there aren't many places willing to hire her. I feel a bit of sympathy for her situation. However, it's a consequence of her own wasteful spending, so she is to blame. No matter the age, one must take responsibility for their actions in the end. My business is thriving, and establishing a base overseas has led to increased interest from other brands. Offers come in from unexpected places that I couldn't have imagined while in the States. It's a blessing, but I'm incredibly busy, barely finding time to sleep. Despite being abroad, I don't have the time to explore. Kevin is also busy managing everything. Children are still far off in the future. I think to myself as I look out over the foreign cityscape outside my window.
What? What's going on? As I entered my room, I was shocked by the sight before me. My treasured accessories and favorite clothes were all gone. Could it be a burglary? In a panic, I reached for my phone to call the police. Just as I expected, you're panicking. Mother. As expected, you can't mean that. That's exactly what I mean. I threw out your personal belongings as trash. What? Watching my panic, my mother-in-law laughed out loud and said something unbelievable. She had thrown out my belongings as trash? Why would she do that? I wanted to ask her for an explanation, but she started explaining before I could ask. How long do you plan to leech off this house? Hurry up and leave. I threw out your stuff to make it easier for you to leave, you should be thanking me. I see. She had always been bullying me to drive me out. Well, if she says so, I don't think I'll try to get along with my mother-in-law anymore. Understood, then, I'll leave. Good, that makes things easier for me. Make it quick, will you? But if I suddenly leave the house, I have nowhere to go. Can I have a week's grace? Fine, I suppose that's okay. Just make sure you leave after a week. I was given a week's grace by my mother-in-law. With this much time, I could look for a new place. Just you watch. I'll show you who you're dealing with. My name is Sarah. 3 years ago, I transitioned to becoming a freelance illustrator. Having worked at an animation production company after graduating from a vocational school, I had some savings. I'm thinking of going freelance soon. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, Sarah, I won't object. Give it your best shot. I'll support you. When I asked my husband Kevin if it was okay to go independent, he was supportive. I was surprised because I had assumed he would object. We had been dating since vocational school and followed different paths after graduation but continued our relationship smoothly, getting married in our 3rd year of working. This year marks our 8th year of marriage. Really? Thank you. Well, I'm a man who gave up the illustrator path, so I'm curious to see how far you can go, Sarah. But don't overdo it, okay? You can always rely on me if you're in trouble. Yes. I'll do my best. Saying that, I left my job and became a freelancer, but it wasn't easy to earn a living. There were months with no income at the beginning, and I often felt down. Maybe I just wasn't cut out to be an illustrator. I thought so many times, but I never gave up and continued to draw and post on social media. One day, a picture I posted went viral, and I became a well-known illustrator on social media. From then on, I started earning significantly from corporate projects and app stamps. It's all thanks to you pushing me. Thank you. No, it's your hard work that's been recognized. That's amazing. I really appreciated my husband. If he had said no, I wouldn't have been able to earn as much. Although I still hadn't saved a lot of money. Ideally, I would like to buy a house and have my own studio. Currently, Kevin and I live in a cheap apartment. It's great that my work is increasing, but I wish I had more space for materials. One day, my husband suggested that we move into his mother's house. The house is just my mother, and there's extra space, so why not? Really? Is that okay to just decide on our own? Of course, I've already talked to my mother. Ever since my father ran off with his mistress when I was a kid, there's been extra space. My mother said she doesn't mind if Sarah uses it. I couldn't see any reason to refuse such a generous offer. I immediately told my husband that we would move to his mother's house. 2 weeks later, when we arrived at his mother's house, my mother-in-law welcomed us warmly. It's been a while, Sarah. Long time no see. Please take care of me from today. Likewise. Kevin told me you're now a popular artist? Not really. Feel free to use the room as you like. Come on in. Living with my kind mother-in-law and husband, I felt no anxiety. I was determined to do well in my creative work in this new environment. However, I had no idea at the time that the seemingly kind mother-in-law was actually like that. After living at my mother-in-law's house for 3 months, I had gotten used to the environment. All right, that's the delivery done. Work was going well, and my workspace had also been upgraded, significantly increasing my earnings. Everything was going smoothly. I got a bit carried away, but then, 2 months later, my husband was suddenly fired, causing a major disruption in our lives. Sigh. What should I do? As soon as he returned to his mother's house, my husband sighed and muttered. What had happened? Did his sales not go well? What's wrong? Did the sales go badly? After graduating from vocational school, my husband worked as a salesman for a major trading company supplying factories. I thought he might have failed in his sales efforts, but the reply I received was unexpected. I got fired. Huh? What did you say? So, I got fired. I was laid off. It can't be true. My husband had been working diligently. Why then? You were laid off. Did you do something bad? Of course not. It's just that our department alone had significantly poor sales, and the company judged it as a bad investment. They told us to either spend our days as sidelined employees with a significant pay cut or accept a generous severance package and leave. It's practically a forced layoff. I couldn't ask my husband anything more. After being so abruptly betrayed by the company he had devoted himself to, I had no words of comfort for him. The least I could do was leave him be. From the next day, my jobless husband started spending his days lounging around the house. Honestly, I wanted him to change his mindset and look for a job, but he probably wasn't ready yet. Oh well. I'll have to work hard. For my husband and my non-working mother-in-law, I threw myself into my work more than ever. Sometimes, I was so busy that I skipped meals and worked from morning till night without stopping. This is bad. Maybe I overdid it. Even while occasionally having such thoughts, after about a month of continuing, a substantial income was deposited into my account. Seeing an amount I had never seen before, I inadvertently said to my husband, "You don't have to rush to find a job anymore. I earned $50,000 this month, so with this much, we can live without any luxuries." Whoa, that's amazing. My husband said I was amazing, but his eyes looked cold. Why did I mention my earnings to my husband at that time? From the next day, this became the cause of relentless bullying from my mother-in-law. The next morning. "Sarah, come here." While I was working, I heard my mother-in-law shouting for me from downstairs. Unusual. What could it be? Okay. Just a moment, please. After responding, I paused my work and headed downstairs. My mother-in-law was standing in the living room. "What's the matter?" "This. Could you do the laundry?" But I haven't finished my work yet." "That can be done anytime, right? I've been silent until now, but isn't it about time you started doing your part around the house?" "You're a daughter-in-law, right?" "Well, she has a point. I understand where my mother-in-law is coming from. Until now, I had been relying on her and neglected household chores like cleaning and laundry due to being engrossed in my work." Feeling reflective, I told my mother-in-law. "That's true, perhaps I was wrong." "Understood. I'll do the laundry once I finish the work I'm currently doing, so please leave it here." Afterwards, as promised, I completed the laundry and even cleaned the living room. Perhaps doing such things occasionally is a good break. I thought nonchalantly, but from that day, the bullying from my mother-in-law escalated. "Are you still just drawing pictures? Are you a kindergartner? If you have time for such trivial things, go do the shopping. I can't believe your drawings sell." And so on, she started complaining about everything. Every day, being overworked left me with no progress in my work. At times, I was woken up before 5 a.m. to make breakfast, inevitably reducing my sleep hours. I couldn't concentrate on work, and the amount of work I could handle each day significantly decreased. Though my income hadn't decreased drastically yet, at this rate, I might become unable to work at all. Worried, I decided to ask my husband to stop the bullying from my mother-in-law when we were alone in the bedroom. "Recently, your mother has been bullying me as if she's targeting me. It's okay to be used for chores, but being freely harassed from morning till night. I might become unable to work at all, so could you please kindly ask your mother to stop the bullying?" What a hassle. Why do I have to say it? You should say it yourself. If you're troubled by not being able to work, why don't you move out? You have an income, right? What? What kind of response is that? I've been working hard because you've been lounging around without looking for a job. I think if there's a complaint, I should say it myself. But I can't just say such things to my mother-in-law. In the end, my husband turned his back to me and went to sleep without really discussing the matter with me. Half a year later. After enduring daily relentless bullying, I was mentally and physically exhausted. My husband still showed no intention of looking for a job. My pace of work had drastically decreased, and my earnings had dropped to less than half of my peak period. I'm so tired of this. That's what I thought, and before I knew it, I had left the house and arrived at a nearby park. I just sat on a bench doing nothing, but that alone was immensely soothing for me at the moment. About an hour might have passed. Feeling relaxed, I returned to my mother-in-law's house. I don't feel like working today. Maybe I'll take a nap. With that thought, I went back to my room and was stunned by the scene before me. What? What's going on? As I entered my room, I was shocked by the sight before me. My treasured accessories and favorite clothes were all gone. Could it be a burglary? In a panic, I reached for my phone to call the police. At that moment, my mother-in-law spoke up from behind me. Just as I expected, you're panicking. Mother. As expected, you can't mean that. That's exactly what I mean. I threw out your personal belongings as trash. What? Watching my panic, my mother-in-law laughed out loud and said something unbelievable. She had thrown out my belongings as trash? Why would she do that? I wanted to ask her for an explanation, but she started explaining before I could ask. How long do you plan to leech off this house? Hurry up and leave. I threw out your stuff to make it easier for you to leave, you should be thanking me. I see. She had always been bullying me to drive me out. Well, if she says so, I don't think I'll try to get along with my mother-in-law anymore. Understood, then, I'll leave. Good, that makes things easier for me. Make it quick, will you? But if I suddenly leave the house, I have nowhere to go. Can I have a week's grace? Fine, I suppose that's okay. Just make sure you leave after a week. I was given a week's grace by my mother-in-law. With this much time, I could look for a new place. Just you watch. I'll show you who you're dealing with. From the next day, I started looking for a new place to live. I considered a detached house, but despite my mother-in-law, I decided to move into a luxury high-rise apartment. Of course, I'm not taking my husband and mother-in-law with me. I have no desire to live with a man who relies on my earnings and does nothing but laze around. Although I haven't been earning much recently, I have saved up money from my past earnings. Using that money, I went to a real estate agent and signed a contract to purchase the high-rise apartment. Now, I can leave that house anytime I'm ready. And a week later, the day I finally left my mother-in-law's house, I broached the topic of divorce with my husband. Can you sign this? What is this? Can't you tell? It's a divorce paper. No. I understand that, but why all of a sudden? My husband was puzzled after being handed the divorce papers. At first, I felt sorry for you being laid off, and I pampered you, but you never seemed to want to look for a job, and you kept ignoring the fact that your mother was bullying me, right? If that's the case, there's no need for us to stay married. Maybe, but does getting a divorce mean I have to leave this house? Yes, that's right. I didn't tell you, but today, I'm leaving this house. Leaving. What about the house? You don't have anywhere to live, do you? Don't worry about that. I've already found my next place to live. If I don't like the bullying from my mother-in-law, he was the one who said to just move out, wasn't he? Are you really not going to regret getting divorced? Regret? Don't make me laugh. There's no way I'd do that. Besides, if I continued to live with you, I would surely regret that much more. I burst into laughter upon hearing my husband's question. Well then, I understand. Reluctantly, my husband signed the divorce papers. Now, I don't need to support this man anymore. Next is the mother-in-law. Just before leaving the mother-in-law's house, I confronted her about why she had tormented me so much. It all started when I told my husband about my earnings. Surely, something about that must have displeased her. Thank you for everything until now, Mother. Yeah, I feel refreshed thinking I won't have to see your face anymore. By the way, why did you bully me so much? Oh, there's no deep reason. I just got annoyed that you were earning more than Kevin. I heard from him. At one point, you were making $50,000, weren't you? How dare you earn more than your husband? Normally, you should keep your income lower to save face for your husband. And he was paying the utilities for this house, right? He must have been using his savings to pay them since he lost his job. Unlike you, he's really a good kid. What an idiot. Was I bullied for such a silly reason? Moreover, it seems my mother-in-law is under the impression that my husband was paying for everything in this house. I'm looking forward to what happens after I leave. With a husband and mother-in-law who don't earn anything, they'll surely run into trouble soon. Though I thought that, I didn't say it. So that was your reason. I understand. A wife who can't support her husband will leave now. Goodbye. Leaving just those words behind, I left my mother-in-law's house. On the way to my new high-rise apartment, I stopped at the municipal office and submitted the divorce papers. Now, I have completely severed ties with my husband and mother-in-law. Even if they come begging, there's no way I'll take care of them. Upon arriving at my new place, I immediately began organizing my belongings. The room was spacious due to being in a luxury high-rise apartment, and I secured a considerably large space for my studio. All right. Time to work hard to make up for being disturbed before. After finishing up most of the unpacking, I immersed myself in work. A month later, a call came to my cell phone. Looking at it, I saw it was my ex-husband's name. What does he want now? Honestly, I was in the middle of work and initially ignored it, but he kept calling. Annoying. Losing my patience, I decided to answer. What? I'm busy. Sarah. Where are you now? Where? I'm at home, working. I want to talk about something. Can I come over to your house? Huh? I really don't have anything to talk about with you. Why should I have to meet with you? What a hassle. Just as I was about to brush him off and hang up, I heard my mother-in-law's voice over the phone. Sarah. Long time no see. I'm really sorry, but could we possibly meet and talk? She had always been so domineering, but something seemed off now. She was being unusually humble in asking for a meeting. Reluctantly moved by her serious tone, I agreed to meet. Fine. I'll meet with you, but it's too much trouble to go out, so can you come here? I'll send the location to Kevin. I said that and hung up the phone. Still, I wondered what could be so important that we needed to meet. I pondered this as I resumed my work. 30 minutes later, my home's intercom rang. It seems they had arrived. Yes? We're here. And this place, it's incredible. Did you come here to chat? If so, go home. No, sorry. Please let us in. Though I saw them through the monitor, my ex-husband was there with my mother-in-law behind him. I unlocked the auto lock and invited them into my house. A little while later, the doorbell rang again. I'll open it. I unlocked the door and let them into my house, and they were both visibly astonished. What is this place? A hotel? Sarah, you moved to such an incredible place. What are they doing here? Did they come to tour my house? I don't hear any substantial conversation from the two of them, just astonishment at the luxurious room. So? What did you come here for? If you don't have any business, please leave quickly. You're disturbing my work. I sat down heavily on the sofa and spoke to them in a high-handed manner. Then, as if remembering their original purpose, my ex-husband and mother-in-law suddenly started prostrating themselves in front of me. Please. We can't pay for our living expenses, and our electricity, gas, and water have been shut off. Could you help us out a little? Help? There's no way I would do that. Why should I, who was driven out, have to take care of you guys? What are you talking about in your sleep? Why do I have to pay? You live in such a nice house, surely you can spare a little, right? Yes, that's right. I do feel bad about what I did to you, but we're still relatives, aren't we? Can't you help us? How can they say such unreasonable things with a straight face? I find it utterly incomprehensible. It's a waste of time even to listen to them. Let me make this clear, I was able to buy this house because I worked to the point of death, you know? I was paying your living expenses in place of my husband who has no intention of working. I was bullied by you, mother-in-law, and it even decreased the amount of work I could do. Despite that, I cut back on sleep and worked desperately just to survive. Do you understand that feeling? You wouldn't, would you? You've never struggled, you just exploited me and depended on my earnings. As I said that, the two of them fell silent without any rebuttal. Is that all you came to talk about? Then go home. Also, don't ever come asking for help again, and I don't want to see your faces ever again. If you come again, I'll call the police about a suspicious person. Wait, then how are we supposed to live? What nerve they have. They still dare to beg me at this point. Why should I care? You could earn something yourself by working part-time somewhere. Besides, if Kevin works, the two of you can surely make enough to live on. Don't come crying to me. I'm not helping people who used and bullied me. Just go away. That was the moment when I let out all the emotions I had been holding back. It was the loudest I had ever shouted at my mother-in-law. They probably thought there was no room for negotiation anymore. My ex-husband and mother-in-law hurriedly fled from my house. Their expressions when they saw the inside of this house were priceless. They were so domineering towards me, and now they were completely groveling. Who would help people like them? They should just struggle together. After seeing them off, I returned to my studio and resumed my work. A month later, I was planning to take it easy from the afternoon after doing just enough work in the morning. Shoot. I realized I hadn't opened the living room curtains yet today. Thinking that, I finished up my work and headed to the living room. When I opened the curtains and looked out the window, I spotted my ex-husband and mother-in-law wandering around the high-rise complex. Huh? Isn't that Kevin and mother-in-law? They came back, not learning their lesson. However, they weren't pressing my home's intercom, they were just wandering around aimlessly. They must be mindful of the threat I made. I suppose I should throw them a lifeline. Thinking this, I called them while looking down at the two from my window. Hello? What are you doing? Sarah. What do you mean, what are we doing? Don't play dumb. I can see you from my room right now. Remember what I said? I'd call the police. Wait, we're just wandering, but we aren't doing anything wrong, right? Well, that's true. Their behavior is totally suspicious, though. Then what are you doing? Well, knowing you, you probably came to ask me for help, right? That's true, but since then, I've reflected, and even though it's just temporary, I've found a new job. The salary hasn't come in yet, so I thought maybe you could lend us a little until it does. I'll definitely pay you back once I get paid. Huh. So, you can do it when you're desperate. But I gave up on you because you only act when things get this bad. Huh. So you found a job? That's good then. If you're working, why don't you borrow from a loan shark or something? Bye then. With that, I unilaterally ended the call with my ex-husband. About an hour later, I heard the sound of police sirens. Could it be? Slightly excited, I looked outside and saw my ex-husband and mother-in-law being crammed into a police car. Ah, it ended up like this, huh? I didn't call the police. Probably, other residents thought they were suspicious and reported them. Since that incident, the two of them have stopped relying on me and I haven't seen them since. I deleted my ex-husband's contact information and changed my mobile number. From now on, I will earn for myself and live undisturbed.